Welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Chapter 41 shocked Lu Yan. This is too precious. Lu Yan stuffed the steamed bun back into Chen Cheng's hand. Cheng Zhe quickly returned this food to Dao Zhe. It's too valuable, your mother can't eat it. Mother. Chen Cheng, accepting the steamed bun, couldn't help but say, don't worry and eat it. Dao Zhe's family doesn't lack this little bit. When we're working, Dao Zhe lets us eat steamed buns as much as we want, until we're full. What? Lu Yan's eyes widened, completely stunned. Steamed buns costing 3 copper coins each, not only provided to Cheng Zhe and the others, but they can eat until they're full. That's how it is. Chen Shi, standing beside, helped explain, these steamed buns were all brought back by Dao Zhe for us. Mother, quickly try one, these steamed buns are delicious. Chen Mu also said, that's right. Mother, quickly try one. Really? Seeing the 3 brothers constantly urging her, Lu Yan, half believing, took the steamed bun from Chen Cheng's hand, tore off a small piece, and carefully chewed it. Mother, how does it taste? The 3 brothers looked at Lu Yan with anticipation. Very delicious. Lu Yan nodded earnestly, this steamed bun is more delicious than any food I've ever eaten. Lu Yan, over 40 years old, had mostly eaten bran powder in her life. In prosperous years, she could occasionally eat a mouthful of white rice. However, even white rice was far inferior in taste to steamed buns. I'll put these steamed buns away and give them to your younger siblings later. Although the steamed buns were delicious, Lu Yan didn't greedily eat them but carefully put the 5½ steamed buns away, intending to save them for the 3 younger children at home. Seeing this, the 3 Chen Cheng brothers didn't say anything. Their mother had always been like this, always saving the good food for her children. After putting away the steamed buns, Lu Yan said to the 3 brothers, Dao Zhe is so good to you. You must not be lazy while working at his house, or I won't spare you. Don't worry, mother, we know. About a quarter of an hour later, the 3 Chen Cheng brothers, along with Chen Zhong and Chen Si, all returned to Chen Dao's construction site and began their work in full swing. Chen Dao himself also participated, but physical labor was not Chen Dao's forte. After only carrying lumber for a while, Chen Dao began to pant. This body is still too weak. Chen Dao sighed softly. His body was only 15 years old and, due to chronic undernourishment, was very thin and unable to do much physical labor. Dao Zhe, go rest, we'll do it. Noticing Chen Dao's lack of strength, Chen Cheng quickly told Chen Dao to rest. Chen Dao nodded and returned to the Chen family's house, lying on the bed to think about the future. Since his trip to the county town and his conversation with Wuhan, Chen Dao had often considered the issue of the court increasing taxes. According to Chen Dao's speculation, this tax increase would definitely not be limited to the county town but would eventually reach the villages outside the county town. When that time comes, the villages outside the county town would suffer. Even the people within the city couldn't afford a stone of grain, let alone the poor people in the rural areas outside the county town. And once they couldn't pay the grain, their entire family would be conscripted into the army. This punishment gave Chen Dao a sense of chilling dread. He wasn't worried about his own family not being able to pay the grain but couldn't help but worry about villagers like Chen Cheng. Given the current situation in Taiping County, at least 90% of the people couldn't pay a stone of grain. Once the government excessively pressured these people, it was hard to say that there wouldn't be trouble, or even, someone would raise the banner of rebellion. When watching history in his previous life, history books often described peasant rebellions as peasant uprisings. Every time Chen Dao saw a peasant uprising, he felt very relieved, but that was from the perspective of a person from the future. But now, Chen Dao was about to personally experience a peasant uprising. This was completely different from what he saw in history books. He knew that once someone rebelled and war broke out, those who suffered the most would always be the ordinary people like him. I need to think of a solution. Lying in bed, Chen Dao wrapped himself tightly in the quilt, resisting the cold wind while thinking about countermeasures. Unknowingly, it became dusk. On the construction site, the 5 of Chen Cheng were already hungry. Fortunately, at this time, Li Ping and He Quilian came over, carrying wooden buckets filled with food. Auntie. Chen Shi approached the food bucket and asked in a flattering tone, is the evening meal still steamed buns? Having tasted the flavor of steamed buns, Chen Shi had completely fallen in love with them, and his love for rice had greatly diminished. It's steamed buns. Li Ping nodded gently. Joy immediately appeared on the faces of the 5 of Chen Shi, and they looked at the food bucket opened by Li Ping with surprise. As the cloth covering the food bucket was lifted, a rich aroma spread out, and plump steamed buns appeared in the sight of Chen Cheng and the others. It really is steamed buns. Chen Cheng took a steamed bun handed to him by Li Ping and said suspiciously, "Auntie, why is the color of these steamed buns a little different from this morning?" The others also showed puzzled expressions. The steamed buns in the morning were white, but the steamed bun in Chen Cheng's hand at this time was a bit yellowish. Of course, the aroma emitted by both was similar, and the taste was equally tempting. The steamed buns in the morning were made of white flour, and the steamed buns now are made of sorghum flour. Li Ping explained with a smile. Chen Dao had told them that sorghum flour could also be used to make steamed buns. Under Chen Dao's guidance, Li Ping and He Quilian mixed the old dough left over from the morning with sorghum flour and quickly fermented it, successfully making sorghum steamed buns. I see. Chen Cheng suddenly understood and directly took a bite of half a sorghum steamed bun, chewing with his cheeks bulging. As the taste of the steamed bun spread in his mouth, a look of satisfaction appeared on Chen Cheng's face. The others also started eating one after another, grabbing a steamed bun each and devouring them greedily. This sorghum steamed bun seems to be even more delicious than white flour steamed buns. I think so too. Dao is really good to us, even giving us steamed buns to eat. Quote. Everyone praised Chen Dao while eating. In their eyes at this time, Chen Dao was definitely the best person in the village to them, without exception. Because even their mothers had never given them such delicious food. They're eating steamed buns again. Damn it. What kind of wonderful life are these big-bellied Chen Cheng and the others living? Eating better than landlords. I also want to eat steamed buns. Steamed buns every meal until you're full. Damn it, is this the life a person should live? How much grain does Dao Zhi's family have? He's actually giving such precious food like steamed buns to these big-bellied Chen Cheng and the others. Quote. Not far from the construction site, the villagers watching the excitement almost drooled on the ground. Their noses smelled the aroma of steamed buns in the air, and their eyes watched Chen Cheng and the others eat one steamed bun after another, which was complete torment for them. Chapter 42 Red Panda. Aunt, we're leaving now. After filling their stomachs with delicious steamed buns, Chen Cheng and the other four bid farewell to Li Ping and returned to their respective homes. Chen Dao also walked home with Li Ping and He Quilian. At this time, in the courtyard of Chen Dao's house, Chen Dao was feeding the chickens. Seeing Chen Dao and the others enter, he quickly greeted them. Dao Ji, we're having a feast tonight. Just then, Chen Dao mysteriously took out a package from behind him. The package was opened, revealing a small animal inside. Holy crap! Chen Dao took a closer look and immediately blurted out a national swear word in surprise. He saw that this animal had a reddish-brown fur that looked extremely soft, adorned with well-distributed white spots. Its eyes were round, dark, and bright, with a circle of white fluff around them, as if it were wearing glasses. Its tail was particularly long, covered with alternating thick and thin ring patterns, with a total of 9 segments, making it look cute and beautiful. This is a red panda. Chen Dao stared wide-eyed at the small animal in front of him. That's right, this animal was none other than the adorable animal known as the red panda in his previous life. In his previous life, Chen Dao often came across videos of red pandas while browsing Douyin, so he was particularly familiar with their appearance. He immediately recognized this creature that Chen Dao was preparing to use for a feast. Red panda. Chen Dao, hearing Chen Dao's exclamation, asked in confusion, isn't this a 9-section wolf? Ah, Chen Dao suddenly remembered that red panda was the name given to this animal later in Hua country in his previous life. In many places, the red panda was commonly known as the 9-section wolf, because its tail had 9 segments of different colors. Uncle, where did you get this? Chen Dao looked at the red panda, who was timidly standing by Chen Dao's feet, and liked it more and more. In his previous life, Chen Dao had wanted to raise a red panda more than once, but the conditions simply didn't allow it, so he had to give up. This beast ran over when I was cutting down trees. Chen Dao replied, it's not afraid of strangers. It ran out of the forest and has been following me ever since. I figured it was at least a source of meat, so I brought it back, planning to kill it and eat it. Kill it. Chen Dao's mouth twitched. Chen Dao could actually bring himself to kill and eat such a cute little animal. As expected of an old hunter. However, after a moment's thought, Chen Dao suddenly understood. For the people of Earth in his previous life, since they didn't have to worry about food and drink, they naturally wouldn't kill cute creatures like red pandas. But for the people of this world, eating meat was the most important thing. Whether a red panda was cute or not didn't affect the fact that it was a source of meat. But understanding was understanding. Chen Dao was still a little unwilling to let Chen Da kill this red panda. He walked to the red panda, picked it up, and said, "Uncle, I really like this red panda. Can you give it to me? I can exchange it for some eggs. You want to raise this 9-section wolf? Yes. Then I'll give it to you." Chen Da waved his hand and said, "As for exchanging it for eggs, there's no need to mention it. It's just a beast, far less valuable than the white feather chicken breeding secret you gave me." Chen Dao didn't say anything, because when Chen Da confirmed that he would give him the red panda's advancement information appeared in his eyes. Swift-wind red panda features. Moves like the wind, weak attack power, combat power comparable to a rank 9 warrior. Red panda advancement path 2. Continuously feed it coagulating blood fruit and blood jade bamboo leaves for 5 days, with an 80% chance of advancing to Ironclaw red panda. Ironclaw red panda features. Swift movement, sharp claws, combat power comparable to a rank 8 warrior. Red pandas can actually advance. Chen Dao was both surprised and not surprised. Over this period of time, he had roughly figured out the rules of his golden finger. All the plants and animals that belonged to him could see advancement information. Now that this red panda had been given to him by Chen Da, it naturally counted as something he owned. What really surprised Chen Dao was that the red panda's advancement was so powerful. Among the 2 advancement paths, the swift-wind red panda in the first advancement path could be comparable to a rank 9 warrior. The Ironclaw red panda in the second advancement path was even comparable to a rank 8 warrior. Coagulating blood fruit and blood jade bamboo leaves. Chen Dao's eyes flashed with a sharp light. He already had the coagulating blood fruit, one of the 2 materials for advancing to Ironclaw red panda. The only thing missing was blood jade bamboo leaves. If I can gather the materials and advance the red panda to Ironclaw red panda, my safety will be even more guaranteed. Chen Dao, who had come to this world, had always lacked a sense of security. Although the Blackfoot chicken Little Black that he had previously cultivated had increased his sense of security somewhat, the increase was ultimately limited. After all, Little Black was too special and not suitable for appearing in other people's sight. Imagine, when Chen Dao entered the city, Little Black followed behind him, clucking. This would immediately make Chen Dao the center of attention and be targeted by the powerful forces in the county. Compared to Little Black, the red panda was not so eye-catching. Although the red panda would also be noticed by others because of its cute appearance, carrying a red panda was always better than having a clucking chicken following behind him, right? What's more, after the red panda advanced to Ironclaw red panda, its combat power would be comparable to a rank 8 warrior. There were only a few rank 8 warriors in the county. With the protection of the Ironclaw red panda, which was equivalent to a rank 8 warrior, Chen Dao's own safety problem would be completely solved. What a cute red panda. Chen Dao squinted his eyes and gently stroked the red panda's soft fur on its head, feeling very happy. The red panda also seemed to enjoy being stroked, and a contented look appeared on its cute little face. It rubbed its head against Chen Dao's palm, and its long tail kept wagging, showing its happy mood. From now on, I'll call you Xiao Yuan, Little Round. Chen Dao looked at the red panda's round face and gave it such a name. Then, Chen Dao hung Xiao Yuan on his shoulder and went to the kitchen to have dinner with his family. Wow! Chen Fei's eyes were sharp. She immediately saw the red panda lying on Chen Dao's shoulder and ran to Chen Dao's side, her little eyes staring unblinkingly at the cute red panda. Brother, what kind of animal is this? It's so beautiful. Chen Titan also ran over immediately, wanting to reach out and touch the red panda, but he was a little scared. This is a red panda. Chen Dao explained to the 2 little ones, I named it Xiao Yuan. Do you want to play with Xiao Yuan? Yes. The 2 children nodded in unison. Children have little resistance to cute creatures like red pandas. Chapter 43, Effortless. Here you go. Chen Dao peeled the little panda off his shoulder and handed it to Chen Fei. The little panda wasn't shy at all. It climbed onto Chen Fei's shoulder as soon as she reached out, squinting eyes as if sleeping. So cute. Chen Titan reached out and gently stroked the little panda's fur. Seeing that the little panda didn't react, he touched it even more happily. The 2 children petted the little panda and returned to their seats. At this time, the food was also brought to the table. Tonight's meal was relatively rich. In addition to steamed buns, Li Ping and He Quilian also cooked a portion of egg drop soup. Everyone ate sorghum buns with the egg drop soup, and they enjoyed it. After dinner, Chen Dao took the little panda from Chen Fei, who was reluctant to let go, and returned to his bedroom. Lying on the bed, Chen Dao looked at the little panda sleeping in his arms, with a thoughtful expression on his face. Pandas should eat bamboo, and also some berries. Chen Dao certainly couldn't give the little panda fruit for the time being, but Chenjia village, which is close to Kangmang Mountain, is not short of bamboo leaves, so there is no need to worry about not being able to feed the little panda. Next time I go to town, I can inquire about blood jade bamboo leaves. With this thought, Chen Dao quickly fell asleep. 5 days passed quietly. At Chen Dao's construction site, Chen Cheng and the other four, as well as Chen Dao, were still building the main body of the house in full swing. Chen Dao, on the other hand, stood in Chen Dao's yard with a look of joy on his face. At this time, the number of yellow-feathered chickens in the cage had reached 24. This was a number that surprised Chen Dao extremely. Because among these 24 yellow-feathered chickens, the number of adult yellow-feathered chickens had reached 7. After Chen Dao sold 2 yellow-feathered chickens, there were only 4 adult yellow-feathered chickens left. The reason why there are 7 now is naturally because the 3 chicks that were initially hatched have grown up. 8 days, it only took 8 days to mature. This growth rate. Chen Dao was shocked. The fast-growing white-feathered chickens used by KFC and other fast food restaurants in his previous life would take at least 20 days to reach the standard for slaughter, but the yellow-feathered chickens he raised only needed 8 days. If this were in China in his previous life, it would probably be regarded by the public as unhealthy, or even poisonous, or chickens that had been injected with growth hormones. But Chen Dao knew very well that he could never have high-tech things like growth hormones for the yellow-feathered chickens, let alone feed them chemical feed, but they were raised with pure natural grains. The reason why they can mature in 8 days is only because the yellow-feathered chicken breed is relatively unique, and it is definitely not because of feeding them growth hormones or feed containing hormones. At this rate of reproduction and growth, I'm afraid this cage won't be enough in a month. Chen Dao now especially hopes that his house can be built as soon as possible, otherwise, he will really have no place to raise chickens. In addition, as the number of chickens raised increases, the consumption of food is also increasing. The sorghum, rice bran, and other grains purchased last time are almost used up. I have to start cultivating blood-feather chickens. Chen Dao thought to himself. He knew very well that although white-feathered chickens and yellow-feathered chickens sell for a relatively high price, they can only feed his family. If he wants to get rich, he must cultivate the chicken breeds needed by warriors, that is, blood-feather chickens. Warriors in this world have a detached status and are also one of the wealthiest groups. Only things sold to warriors can be sold at high prices and generate enough profit. Thinking of this, Chen Dao immediately returned to the house, took out 3 blood coagulation fruits, and gave them to the 3 newly matured yellow-feathered chickens to peck at. Cluck, cluck, cluck. The 3 newly matured yellow-feathered chickens quickly pecked at the blood coagulation fruits that Chen Dao placed on the ground. At the same time, Xiaohei also ran over clucking, begging Chen Dao for food. And on Chen Dao's shoulder, Xiao Yuan, who had been lying down, made a whining sound, obviously also hungry. You're all gluttons. Chen Dao distressed-edly returned to the house, took out sorghum and rice bran to feed Xiaohei. Then, Chen Dao took the little panda out and came to his construction site. Uncle Chen. Chen Dao stopped Chen Dao, who was carrying wood, and said, please take me to find some bamboo. Chen Dao glanced at the little panda on Chen Dao's shoulder and nodded knowingly, come with me. Before long, Chen Dao and Chen Dao came to a bamboo forest at the foot of the mountain. Xiao Yuan seemed particularly excited when he came to the bamboo forest. He jumped off Chen Dao's body with a whining sound and gnawed on the fresh bamboo. Dao, you can stay here, don't go inside. Chen Dao pointed to the direction of the mountain with a profound look. This bamboo forest belongs to the edge of Kangmang Mountain. There are few wild animals and it is considered a relatively safe place. If you go deeper, it is the area where Chen Dao used to hunt. Various wild animals appear from time to time, which is very dangerous. I know, uncle. Then I'll go back to work first. After Chen Dao left, Chen Dao sat under a bamboo tree, waiting for Xiao Yuan to eat while looking into the depths of Kangmang Mountain. Kangmang Mountain is mysterious and dangerous. Even the villagers of Chenjia village who live at the foot of the mountain know very little about this mountain. Not to mention the villagers of Chenjia village, even Chen Dao, a hunter, has very limited knowledge of Kangmeng mountain. When going into the mountains to hunt, Chen Dao only dared to hunt on the periphery of Kangmeng mountain and never dared to enter the depths. According to Chen Dao, he once saw a group of warriors entering the depths of Kangmeng mountain from the direction of Chenjia village, and then never came out again. Even warriors cannot survive after entering, which shows how dangerous the depths of Kangmeng mountain are. Ying, ying, ying. At this moment, Xiao Yuan made a cheerful cry. Chen Dao looked in the direction of the sound and saw Xiao Yuan standing upright, with a hint of urgency on his round little face. In front of Xiao Yuan was an unusually unique bamboo tree. The bamboo leaves on that bamboo tree were completely different from the ordinary emerald green bamboo leaves. Instead, they were blood red, and the bamboo leaves shone like jade in the sunlight. Ying, ying, ying. Because the bamboo leaves were too high and he couldn't reach them, Xiao Yuan quickly ran to Chen Dao, biting Chen Dao's clothes, seeming to want Chen Dao to help. Could this be blood jade bamboo leaves? Chen Dao walked to the bamboo tree and looked up. The bamboo leaves are red and shine with a jade-like luster. It is very likely that it is one of the materials needed for the little panda's advancement, blood jade bamboo leaves. This is really effortless. Chen Dao reached out and shook the bamboo pole violently. Before long, pieces of red bamboo leaves fell from the air. Xiao Yuan happily picked up a bamboo leaf and put it in his mouth to chew. Judging from Xiao Yuan's performance, this thing is very likely to be blood jade bamboo leaves. Chen Dao judged. According to past experience, the materials for advancement are often very attractive to animals that need to advance. When Chen Dao took out blood coagulation fruit to feed the yellow-feathered chickens, Xiao Yuan seemed particularly restless, as if he really wanted to eat blood coagulation fruit. And this red bamboo leaf can make Xiao Yuan so fond of it, indicating that this thing is very likely to be one of the blood jade bamboo leaves needed for advancement. In this case, there is no need to go to the county to find Xiao Yuan's advancement materials. Thinking of this, Chen Dao shook the bamboo pole more and more vigorously. Pieces of red bamboo leaves fell down with the wind. Chen Dao quickly collected all these bamboo leaves, and then quickly took Xiao Yuan back to Chen Dao's house, took out a blood coagulation fruit and handed it to Xiao Yuan. Ying, ying, ying. Xiao Yuan excitedly held a blood coagulation fruit in both hands, nibbling the flesh bit by bit, with a human-like look of joy on his face. Chapter 44 Blood Claw Chicken and Red Blood Chicken. Brother, where's Xiao Yuan? We want to play with Xiao Yuan. Chen Fei and Chen Titan happily ran out of the house, their first words being about finding Xiao Yuan. Chen Dao handed them Xiao Yuan, who had already finished eating the hemostatic fruit, and said, "You guys play with Xiao Yuan, I'm going out." Okay, brother. After leaving Xiao Yuan to play with the two children, Chen Dao went to the construction site and worked with Chen Dao and the others, doing what he could. 3 days passed. This morning, Chen Dao stood in front of the chicken coop, his eyes filled with joy. He saw that the total number of chickens in the coop had reached 30, including 8 adult yellow-feathered chickens, 19 young yellow-feathered chickens, and the remaining 3 were blood-feathered chickens. Successfully advanced. Chen Dao looked at the blood-feathered chickens in the cage, his joy overflowing. At the same time, the advancement information of the blood-feathered chicken appeared in Chen Dao's sight. Blood-feathered chicken, characteristics, small size, chicken meat and blood can strengthen vitality. Blood-feathered chicken advancement route 1, continuously feed blood spirit fungus for 5 days to advance to blood claw chicken. Blood claw chicken characteristics, larger size, agile movements, combat power comparable to an 8th rank martial artist. Blood-feathered chicken advancement route 2, grind chicken heart grass and phoenix tail flour into juice, and continuously feed for 5 days to advance to crimson blood chicken. Crimson blood chicken characteristics, chicken blood and meat can nourish vitality, with even better effects than the blood-feathered chicken. Blood claw chicken and crimson blood chicken. Chen Dao looked thoughtful. This time, there were also 2 advancement routes, one was to advance into a fighting chicken, and the other was to advance into a meat chicken. And the types of chickens that could be produced by these 2 advancement routes seemed to be very good. Among them, the blood claw chicken's combat power was comparable to an 8th rank martial artist, and although the description of the crimson blood chicken was somewhat vague, Chen Dao, based on his previous experience, could roughly conclude that the effect of the crimson blood chicken in nourishing vitality was definitely better than that of the blood-feathered chicken. It's just a pity that the medicinal materials for advancement are getting harder and harder to obtain. Chen Dao sighed. He had never even heard of the blood spirit fungus required for the blood claw chicken's advancement, and medicinal materials with the word spirit fungus in their name were definitely not cheap. As for the advancement materials for the crimson blood chicken, Chen Dao had plenty of chicken heart grass, but the phoenix tail flower, he would probably have to inquire about it in the county town. Chen Dao guessed that blood spirit fungus and phoenix tail flower were likely medicinal materials used by martial artists, and medicinal materials used by martial artists were often extremely expensive. Let's consider the advancement later. Chen Dao temporarily put aside the matter of advancement and looked at the 3 blood-feathered chickens in the cage. Now that the blood-feathered chicken, a type of chicken effective for martial artists, had been cultivated, he should consider selling them next. But Chen Dao hadn't figured out how to sell this thing. Because the blood-feathered chicken, a type of chicken useful to martial artists, was too precious. If Chen Dao took it to the market to sell, it would be difficult to guarantee that he wouldn't be targeted. You should know that the entire Xia kingdom is now in turmoil, and the imperial court and government have no control over the lower levels. The authority of the law no longer exists, and things like murder and robbery are not impossible to happen. On the way to the county town last time, Chen Dao personally saw several bandits jumping out of the forest beside the official road, forcibly abducting 2 women from a family of 3, as well as all their money and food. It was only because Chen Dao and his group looked difficult to mess with that they didn't become one of the bandits' prey. Of course, Chen Dao was not worried about those bandits, but about the powerful forces in the county town. Once those powerful forces learned that he possessed something like the blood-feathered chicken, which was comparable to a demon beast, the only 2 outcomes awaiting him would probably be: first, to die suddenly for no apparent reason, and then the blood-feathered chicken would fall into the hands of those powerful forces for them to study. Second, to be imprisoned and tortured by those powerful forces, asking about the source of the blood-feathered chicken. Chen Dao could not accept either of these 2 consequences, so Chen Dao planned to wait until Xiaoyuan successfully advanced before considering selling the blood-feathered chicken in the county town. As for the target for selling the blood-feathered chicken, Chen Dao had no choice but to sell it to Li Ying. Having dealt with Li Ying several times, Chen Dao still had a good impression of Li Ying. Li Ying didn't have the kind of arrogant attitude at all, and her heart was also relatively kind. She shouldn't do anything to seize by force. However, even so, Chen Dao still planned to wait until Xiaoyuan successfully advanced before going to the county town. After all, it's hard to know a person's heart. Chen Dao couldn't guarantee that Li Ying wouldn't be tempted by the huge benefits of the blood-feathered chicken. Only with the protection of the Iron Claw Little Panda, which was equivalent to an 8th-rank martial artist, could Chen Dao feel more at ease. Hurry up and advance successfully, Xiaoyuan. Chen Dao gently stroked Xiaoyuan's round head, and Xiaoyuan immediately made a comfortable sound, as if enjoying Chen Dao's caress. After taking out food from the house to feed Xiao He and a group of yellow-feathered chickens and blood-feathered chickens, Chen Dao walked out of the house and came to his own construction site. At this time, Chen Cheng and the 5 others were eating breakfast, still eating fragrant sorghum flour buns. Seeing Chen Dao coming, everyone greeted him. Brother Dao. Brother Dao is here. Brother Dao, there are still buns here, want to eat some together. Quote. Faced with the enthusiastic people, Chen Dao nodded in response, walked straight to Chen Cheng and sat down, and asked with a smile, Brother Cheng, will you get tired of eating buns every day? Tired? How could I get tired? Chen Cheng replied without thinking, these buns are even more delicious than white rice. How could I get tired of eating them? Quote. Chen Dao was speechless, and then he realized that he had misunderstood. For him, it was naturally unacceptable to eat buns every meal, and he occasionally had to eat some white rice to change his taste. But for Chen Cheng and these people, they usually ate bran flour at home. Buns were much more delicious than bran flour for them, so there was no possibility of getting tired of them at all. Brother Dao. Chen Dao walked over and said, this house is already half built. I estimate that it will be completed in about half a month. Hearing this, Chen Dao looked at the construction site. He saw that the prototype of the house had already appeared, and as Chen Dao said, in about half a month, the main body of the house should be completed. Thank you, uncle, and brother Cheng and you guys. Chen Dao said. Not at all. Chen Cheng waved his hand and said, eating buns every day, we can't wait to work at brother Cheng's house every day. Yes, yes. The others nodded in agreement like chickens pecking rice. The time they had worked at Chen Dao's house was probably the happiest time they had ever had. They had buns every day, and they had never had such a good life even in the peaceful years, let alone in the current year of disaster. Chapter 45 Iron Claw Red Panda. After breakfast, Chen Cheng and the others began to busy themselves, some chopping trees, others cutting wood. Chen Dao also participated, doing what he could, such as handing wood to Chen Zhong and the others who were building the house. In the blink of an eye, another 2 days passed. The first thing Chen Dao did when he opened his eyes that day was to lift the covers and look at the little round thing curled up in his bed. Iron Claw Panda. Features: fast movement, sharp claws, combat power comparable to an 8th rank martial artist. Iron Claw Panda Advancement Route 1. Feed with coagulation fruit and blood lingzi for 5 days to advance to Razor Claw Panda. Razor Claw Panda features: long and sharp claws, which can break through the defenses of a 7th rank martial artist, combat power comparable to an 8th rank peak martial artist. Iron Claw Panda Advancement Route 2. Feed with iron heart bamboo and bear blood flower for 5 days to advance to Golden Claw Panda. Golden Claw Panda features: extremely fast speed, combat power comparable to a 7th rank martial artist. Successfully advanced. An overwhelming sense of joy instantly washed over Chen Dao, and he took Little Round out of the bed, carefully examining its changes. Doesn't seem to be any different. After a careful examination, Chen Dao couldn't help but frown. The information displayed in his vision told him that Little Round had successfully advanced into an Iron Claw Panda, but Little Round's appearance hadn't changed at all, still looking as cute, innocent, and harmless as ever. That's not right. Chen Dao's gaze quickly fell on Little Round's claws, only to see that Little Round's claws had become much longer and looked even sharper. Before, the panda's claws felt more like plastic, but now when Chen Dao touched them, he felt a cold, sharp, and firm sensation, and the claws even shimmered with a metallic luster, almost indistinguishable from iron. I wonder how powerful these claws are. Chen Dao carried Little Round to the front yard, pointed to a head-sized rock in the yard, and said to Little Round, attack that rock. Ying ying ying. Little Round responded immediately, jumped down from Chen Dao's body, and swiped its claws at the rock. Chi. A chilling, ear-piercing sound came, and the next moment, in Chen Dao's sight, several gouges appeared on the head-sized rock, scratched out by Little Round. Holy crap! Chen Dao stared at the gouges on the rock with wide eyes, gaining a deep understanding of Little Round's attack power. Even such a hard rock could be scratched. If Little Round's claws scratched a person, wouldn't they be torn to shreds in minutes? Little Round, you're awesome. Chen Dao excitedly picked up Little Round and kissed its furry cheeks wildly. Ying ying ying. Little Round seemed to enjoy its master's kisses very much, making pleasant ying 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 sounds, completely different from the panda that had just scratched gouges into the rock with one claw. Ha ha. Looking at the cute Little Round, Chen Dao loved it even more, rubbing Little Round's head. The more he rubbed, the happier he became. Daoer, what are you doing here? Just then, Li Ping and He Quilian came out of the house carrying rice buckets, and asked with a smile when they saw Chen Dao rubbing Little Round's head like crazy. Nothing. Chen Dao waved his hand. Mom, I'll go out with you. So, the three of them left the Chen residence together and headed towards the construction site. At this time, under the big tree next to the construction site, Chen Cheng and the others were sitting under the tree to avoid the wind. Although they were a little cold, their hearts were burning with anticipation for the steamed bun feast later. Dao Zhe is here. Chen Shi noticed Chen Dao's arrival immediately and greeted him, saying, Dao Zhe, are we still eating steamed buns today? Of course. Chen Dao nodded with a smile, but after breakfast today, you don't have to work. Don't have to work. Hearing that they didn't have to work, Chen Cheng and the others showed uneasy expressions, which was unusual for them. Dao Zhe, Chen Cheng said uneasily, is your house not being built anymore? During this period of time, Chen Cheng had completely fallen in love with working for Chen Dao. Although the physical labor was a bit intense every day, he could eat his fill, and there were also delicious foods like steamed buns, which he had never experienced before. Yes, Dao Zhe, the house is only half built, it can't be stopped, right? Chen Zhong also said cautiously, for fear that Chen Dao would say something like the house wouldn't be built. Dao Zhe, is it because we eat too much? Can we eat less in the future? Chen Shi asked with a worried face. He had finally found a place to eat his fill. If Chen Dao's house wasn't built, then the three brothers would have to go back to the days of not having enough to eat. Don't worry. The house will definitely be finished. Chen Dao said with a smile, the reason why we're not working today is because I need you to go to town with me. Go to town. Hearing that the house wasn't going to be stopped, the three Chen Cheng brothers breathed a sigh of relief, while Chen Zhong and Chen Sis' eyes lit up. They both longed for the county town the most and liked going to the county town the most. As for Chen Dao, he was thoughtful, guessing that Chen Dao should be going to the county town to sell chickens. In fact, not only Chen Dao, but Chen Dao himself also planned to go to town. The 13 gray feathered chickens he bought last time had all advanced into white feathered chickens. In addition, the few white feathered chickens that were originally left at home had also successfully hatched 3 new white feathered chicks. Now, Chen Cheng's house can be said to be overrun with chickens, and it was time to sell some of them, otherwise raising them at home would be a waste of food. Uncle, please trouble you to borrow the donkey cart from the village chief's house. Chen Dao signaled Chen Da to borrow the donkey cart, while he accompanied Chen Cheng and the 5 others to eat breakfast. These steamed buns are really a good thing. Chen Shi took a steamed bun from He Quilian's hand, took a big bite, and praised it incessantly. You never get tired of eating them. Unlike bran flour, you can't eat it at all unless you're extremely hungry. Hearing this, everyone nodded. How could the taste of steamed buns be compared to bran flour? If Dao Zhe'er's house doesn't work in the future, I don't know what to do. Chen Zhong said half-jokingly, my appetite has been spoiled by Dao Zhe'er's steamed buns. I don't know if I can still eat the food at home in the future. Yes, compared to steamed buns, the food at home is almost like pig food. Chen Si nodded in agreement. Although his and Chen Yang's families were not as poor as Chen Cheng's family, they couldn't be said to have much to eat either. Most of the time they ate bran flour, and occasionally they could eat some sorghum flour, but the taste was far from comparable to the fragrant and sweet steamed buns. Chen Dao quietly listened to everyone's comments, only feeling that the people in this world were too easily satisfied. In his previous life, because of developed productivity, people had already gotten rid of hunger, and they pursued extremely high standards in terms of food, not only having meat with every meal, but the meat had to be delicious enough. How could they be as easily satisfied as the people in this world, praising steamed buns after eating a few meals, and not getting tired of them? Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 46, Master of Fuhu Pavilion. Soon after, Chen Da returned driving the donkey cart. Many villagers nearby watched Chen Da on the donkey cart, looking at each other in surprise. Did Chen Da borrow the donkey cart from the village chief's house again? Is he going to town? He must be going to buy grain. Chen Da and Dao Zhe'er's family are really rich. They can still go to town to buy grain every few days this year. Quote. Meeting the envious gazes of the nearby villagers, Chen Da and Chen Dao returned home together, tied up all the chickens they needed to sell, put them in cages, and then, together with Chen Cheng and the other 5, got on the donkey cart, left Chen village, and walked onto the main road. On the long official road, one could still see refugees, either alone or with their families. These refugees were all gaunt and ragged. There were even many refugees stopping outside Chen village, seemingly wanting to enter Chen village to beg for food, but they were destined not to enter, because the village chief Chen He was organizing the young and strong in the village every day to guard and strictly prevent these refugees from breaking into the village. As the donkey cart approached the county town, a stench came over them. The shacks built by the refugees were scattered haphazardly outside the city, with feces and urine everywhere, making the entire area outside the city seem like a filthy world. In addition, Chen Dao also saw many refugees lying on the ground with blank eyes. These refugees probably couldn't find anything to eat, and didn't have the strength to build shacks, so they could only lie on the ground and wait for death. Alas! Chen Dao sighed softly, forcibly suppressing the compassion in his heart. After paying 10 yuan coins, he entered the city with Chen Da and the others, and went straight to the front of the Fuhu Martial Arts Hall. Brother Wei, please help me call Miss Li. As usual, after stuffing 10 copper coins into Wei Ji's hand, Wei Jie entered the hall and called Li Ying out. Little brother Chen is here. Seeing Chen Dao, Li Ying's smile was still so kind. For her, who had the attribute of a foodie, everyone who sold her high-end ingredients could get her favor. Miss Li, please take a step to speak. Chen Dao mysteriously pulled Li Ying to the side. Li Ying didn't mind and followed Chen Dao to a slightly further place. After confirming that the distance was enough so that Wei Jie, Chen Da and others could not hear their conversation, Chen Dao lowered his voice and said, Miss Li, this time I brought some special chickens, I wonder if you are interested. Special chickens. Li Ying's eyes lit up, and she couldn't wait to ask, how special? Chen Dao thought for a while, and organized his words. When we went into the mountains 2 days ago, we caught a kind of chicken that we had never seen before. The chicken is very small, but its feathers are as red as blood. According to the old hunters in the village, this chicken is likely to be of great benefit to martial artists. Of great benefit to martial artists. Li Ying's pupils shrank, and she said with a surprised face, are you serious? It's no wonder that Li Ying was so shocked, it's just that prey that is useful to martial artists is too rare. As far as Li Ying knows, the only prey in this world that can be effective for martial artists is the demon beast. If what Chen Dao said is true, wouldn't that mean Chen Dao and the others captured a demon beast? This is just our guess. Chen Dao certainly didn't dare to guarantee it, so he had to say vaguely, this is the judgment of the old hunters in the village. They suspect that this kind of chicken is very likely to have the blood of a demon beast, which can help martial artists strengthen their blood. The blood of a demon beast. Li Ying frowned and pondered for a moment, then said to Chen Dao, little brother Chen, please wait for me for a while. After speaking, Li Ying turned and ran into the martial arts hall. Not long after, Li Ying returned and said to Chen Dao, little brother Chen, my father wants to see you. Li Ying's father. Isn't that Li Hu, the owner of the Fuhu boxing gym? According to the news Chen Dao inquired about, Li Hu, the owner of the Fuhu boxing gym, is an 8th-rank martial artist, and can be regarded as a top powerhouse in the entire county town. Such a person wants to see himself. Bring your chicken, my father wants to take a look. Okay. Chen Dao signaled Chen Dao and others to wait outside, and then, carrying the chicken cage, he walked into the Fuhu boxing gym with Li Ying. Crossing the gate of the boxing gym, what came into view was a spacious hall. In the hall, young men with upright postures were practicing boxing in a proper manner. And next to these young men, there was also an extremely tall man who was correcting their postures. That's my second junior brother, Han Meng. Noticing Chen Dao's gaze, Li Ying introduced him, now my father rarely teaches the apprentices of the martial arts hall himself. Generally, my second junior brother does it for him. My second junior brother is extremely talented, and is now a 9th-rank peak martial artist, and will soon be able to catch up with my father. Chen Dao nodded and said, then Miss Li, are you the eldest senior sister? Of course. Li Ying puffed out her chest and said with pride, don't look at how powerful the second junior brother is, he has to respectfully call me eldest senior sister when he sees me. Awesome, awesome. Chen Dao smiled and complimented Li Ying. At the same time, many apprentices practicing martial arts in the martial arts hall also noticed Chen Dao, but they just glanced at him and lost interest. Chen Dao's clothes could tell at a glance that he was not one of them, and was not worth paying attention to at all. Only Han Meng, who was as tall as Chen Cheng, trotted over and greeted Li Ying in a simple and honest manner, eldest senior sister. My name is Chen Dao. Hello, brother Chen. Han Meng scratched his head and said, brother Chen, are you here to practice martial arts too? No. Chen Dao didn't mean to explain. Li Ying said, my father wants to see him, junior brother Han, we'll talk about it in detail later. Okay. Passing through the martial arts hall, they came to the backyard of the martial arts hall. In the empty backyard, there was only one figure sitting on a stone chair in the yard. Chen Dao recognized the identity of this person at a glance. It was Li Hu, the owner of the Fuhu boxing gym. Dad. Sure enough, Li Ying, who came to the backyard, called out Li Hu's identity, I brought little brother Chen here. Li Hu nodded to Li Ying, and then pointed to the stone chair opposite him and said to Chen Dao, little brother, please sit down. Thank you, Master Li. Chen Dao thanked him and walked straight to sit opposite Li Hu, quietly looking at Li Hu opposite him. Li Hu is very different from the martial artist Chen Dao imagined. In Chen Dao's opinion, a powerful martial artist should be as tall as Han Meng and Chen Cheng, but Li Hu's figure is not particularly tall. It is estimated that he is only 1.7 meters tall. In the cold weather, Li Hu is only wearing a short-sleeved shirt. The exposed arms are full of bulging muscles, like sculptures, giving people a very powerful feeling. Li Hu seemed to glance at Xiao Yuan on Chen Dao's shoulder unintentionally, and looked at Chen Dao. Little brother, you said you captured a chicken with the blood of a demon beast. Chapter 47, The Effective Chicken Blood. Please have a look, Master Li. Chen Dao picked up the chicken cage placed at his feet and put it on the stone table in front of him. This is a chicken we caught in the Kangmeng Mountains. Its feathers are as red as blood. It's a breed we've never seen before. According to the old hunters in our village, it's very likely to be a chicken breed with the bloodline of a demon beast. The so-called guess of the old hunter was naturally a fabrication by Chen Dao. He said this only to increase the credibility of the blood feather chicken having the bloodline of a demon beast. However, Chen Dao's statement did arouse Li Hu's interest. Li Hu moved closer and looked at the blood feather chicken in the cage. He saw that the chicken in the cage was extremely small, even smaller than the common domestic gray-feathered chicken. And indeed, as Chen Dao said, its entire body was covered with bright red feathers, making it look extraordinary. This chicken is indeed a bit different. Li Hu stood up and looked at the chicken in the cage from a condescending angle, thoughtfully saying, "Can you be sure that this chicken, like beasts with the bloodline of demon beasts, has the effect of strengthening blood energy?" "I can't be sure," Chen Dao said truthfully, "that's why I brought the chicken to show Miss Li. If this chicken really has the effect of strengthening blood energy, as the hunters in our village said, then we'll talk about the price. If not, then this deal is off." "Oh." Li Hu turned his gaze to Chen Dao, sizing up the young man, secretly praising him in his heart. As one of the top 10 figures in Taiping County, Li Hu had seen too many young people who were timid and subservient in front of him. Not to mention anything else, just look at the apprentices in the martial arts gym. Which one of them wasn't fearful and shrinking when they saw Li Hu? But Chen Dao, the farm boy in his daughter's words, was neither humble nor arrogant when facing him. His words were clear, and there was no trace of fear in his eyes. This courage alone was enough to make Li Hu look at him with new eyes. "Are you saying that you're willing to give us a chicken for testing?" Li Hu said with admiration in his eyes. "Of course." Chen Dao took a blood feather chicken out of the cage and said, "Master, feel free to take a chicken to try. If this chicken really has the effect of strengthening blood energy, then we'll talk about the price. If not, then I'll take this batch of chickens back." Chen Dao naturally knew that this batch of blood feather chickens really had the effect of strengthening blood energy, so he wasn't worried about the test results. He was just worried about whether Li Hu would use his power to seize them. Fortunately, Xiao Yuan, who was lying on his shoulder, could bring Chen Dao some sense of security. "Good." Li Hu reached out and took the blood feather chicken, handing it to Li Ying and saying, "Yinger, you slaughter this chicken and bring the chicken blood for me to taste." "No problem." Li Ying was quite skilled at killing chickens. She quickly took the chicken and walked into the nearby kitchen. Before long, the miserable cries of the blood feather chicken came from the kitchen. Immediately afterwards, Li Ying walked out of the kitchen with a bowl of chicken blood that hadn't yet congealed and said to Li Hu, "Dad, try it." Li Hu took the bowl of chicken blood while explaining to Chen Dao, "All beasts with the bloodline of demon beasts have blood that can strengthen the blood energy of martial artists. If this bowl of chicken blood works, it means that your batch of chickens really has the bloodline of demon beasts." After speaking, Li Hu picked up the bowl and, without any disgust for the fishy smell of the chicken blood, drank the chicken blood in the bowl in one gulp. "The taste is not bad." Li Hu wiped the remaining chicken blood from the corner of his mouth with his sleeve. Immediately afterwards, his expression froze, and he stood there in a daze. This chicken blood. Li Hu only felt a warm current rising from his stomach. Immediately afterwards, this warm current spread from his abdomen to his entire body. Even the exposed skin and face of Li Hu were flushed red, which was a manifestation of the surging blood energy in his body. "It really works." Li Ying's eyes lit up. As a 9th-grade martial artist, she was very familiar with Li Hu's current performance. It was precisely the manifestation of the boiling blood energy and the rising power of blood energy. "You guys wait a moment." Unable to suppress the boiling blood in his body, Li Hu walked directly to the open space in the backyard, waving his fists and practicing the family's martial art, Fuhu Quan, to calm the surging power of blood energy in his body. Huff. After a long while, Li Hu exhaled a breath of hot air, and the redness on his skin and face gradually faded. He returned to the stone table and sat down. "Dad, how was the effect?" Li Ying asked impatiently. "The effect?" Li Hu felt the condition of his body and gave a very high evaluation. "The effect is very good, several times better than ordinary medicinal materials." This bowl of chicken blood raised Li Hu's blood energy by a trace. Although this trace was not much, it was an extremely pleasant surprise for Li Hu. You must know that Li Hu, who has reached the peak of the 8th-grade martial artist, usually needs to diligently practice boxing for a month to increase a trace of blood energy. As for using medicinal materials to help cultivate, for Li Hu at this realm, the medicinal materials that can be bought in the county town are already ineffective for him. However, a bowl of chicken blood from the blood feather chicken saved Li Hu a month's worth of effort, which shows how extraordinary the effect of the blood feather chicken is. Hearing Li Hu's evaluation, Chen Dao breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that the blood feather chicken could be affirmed by Li Hu. In this way, he would not have to worry about the sales of his blood feather chicken. Does that mean that the chicken brought by little brother Chen really has the bloodline of a demon beast? Li Ying asked. I can't be sure whether it has the bloodline of a demon beast. But the effect of strengthening blood energy is real. Li Hu turned to look at Chen Dao and said, little brother, let's talk about the price. Price. Chen Dao naturally didn't know the price of this thing, so he had to say, why don't Master Li first say what price you are willing to offer? Li Hu glanced at Chen Dao and said, 10 taels of silver per chicken, how about that? That's too cheap. Is Master Li deceiving me for being young and ignorant? Chen Dao shook his head and said, as far as I know, an ordinary medicinal material that can help a 9th grade martial artist strengthen blood energy needs to be sold for at least 20 taels of silver. The blood feather chicken is more effective than medicinal materials, so it shouldn't be only 10 taels of silver per chicken. This is the reason why Chen Dao gave up becoming a martial artist, and also the reason why Li Ying persuaded Chen Dao to give up martial arts. In this world, the medicinal materials suitable for martial artists are too expensive, and it is impossible for a farm boy like Chen Dao to afford them. Of course, here we are talking about the medicinal materials used by martial artists. If the medicinal materials used by those martial arts gym apprentices are used, the price will probably be cheaper, but no matter how cheap they are not something that a farm boy from the countryside like Chen Dao can afford. Li Hu, who was exposed in his thoughts, was somewhat guilty. He scratched his head unnaturally and said with an awkward smile, you can't say that, little brother. Although your chicken is more effective than herbs. Before Li Hu could finish speaking, Chen Dao stretched out 2 fingers and said, 20 taels of silver per chicken, what does Master Li think? Chapter 48, Subduing Tiger Fist. 20 taels. Li Hu's eyes lit up, and without a second thought, he said, deal. Quote. Chen Dao was speechless, feeling that the price he quoted was a bit low, but since the words were already out, it wasn't good to go back on them. So he said, then let's start the transaction. Okay. Li Hu said to Li Ying, Yingzi, go and get 100 taels of silver. Chen Dao brought a total of 5 blood feather chickens, and at 20 taels each, 100 taels of silver would be just enough to buy them all. Li Ying ran into the house, and soon returned with a money bag, handing it to Chen Dao. Brother Chen, this is 100 taels of silver, you can count it. Chen Dao took the money bag, opened it in front of Li Ying, and began counting the amount. After confirming that there were exactly 100 taels of silver, Chen Dao smiled and said, thank you for the generosity of Hall Master Li. To be honest, Chen Dao was quite satisfied that the blood feather chickens could be sold for 20 taels each. Most importantly, Li Hu and his daughter were not blinded by greed and chose to rob him of his blood feather chickens, but chose a normal transaction. In this way, he could safely sell more blood feather chickens to Li Hu in the future. Li Hu was also very happy to buy 5 blood feather chickens at such a cheap price of 100 taels of silver, and said with a smile, you're too polite, little brother. After speaking, Li Hu sized up Chen Dao and asked, little brother, I wonder if you have any plans to practice martial arts. Hearing this, Chen Dao was stunned and looked at Li Ying, can I also practice martial arts? Of course you can. Li Hu said with a smile, everyone in this world can practice martial arts, the only difference is the level of talent. Of course, talent is not the key to determining whether martial arts practice can be successful, the real key lies in resources. Resources. That's right. Li Hu nodded and said, everyone can practice martial arts, but even those with extraordinary talent, if they want to become a martial artist, cannot avoid the biggest difficulty of resources. A portion of medicinal herbs used by an apprentice-level martial artist requires 5 taels of silver, and the medicinal herbs required by a 9th-rank martial artist are even more expensive, at least 20 taels of silver per portion. Little brother, how many people do you think can afford this cost of martial arts practice? Chen Dao was speechless. At least among the people Chen Dao knew, none of them could afford this price. Then why does Hall Master think I can practice martial arts? Because you have money now. Li Hu squinted his eyes and smiled. 100 taels of silver, although it is a drop in the bucket for the expenses of martial arts practice, if you are lucky enough, it is enough for you to become a 9th-rank martial artist. How about it? Little brother, are you interested in coming to my Fuhu Martial Arts Hall to practice martial arts? So you were waiting for me here. Chen Dao rolled his eyes. The tuition fee of Fuhu Martial Arts Hall is not cheap. To enter the hall to practice martial arts, the registration fee alone requires 10 taels of silver. This does not include subsequent consumption of medicinal soup and the like in the martial arts hall. It is no exaggeration to say that practicing martial arts in Fuhu Martial Arts Hall for a month costs at least 30 taels of silver. Thank you for the kind invitation, Hall Master. Chen Dao politely declined, but my home is outside the city, and it is inconvenient to come to the hall to practice martial arts. Let's forget about it. So be it. Li Hu himself was just thinking of trying his luck. Seeing Chen Dao's refusal, he didn't force it, but took out a book from his arms and placed it on the stone table, pushing it towards Chen Dao. Since little brother doesn't want to enter the hall to practice martial arts, then this Fuhu Fist manual will be given to little brother. Chen Dao stared at the book pushed by Li Hu, and saw the 4 characters, Fuhu Fist Manual, written on the cover of the book, which made Chen Dao stunned. According to the news he had inquired about, Fuhu Fist is the treasure of the Fuhu Martial Arts Hall. He never thought Li Hu would be so generous to give away the Fist Manual. For a moment, Chen Dao had a further understanding of Li Hu's generosity, but he still declined. This is too precious, I dare not accept it. Precious. Li Hu and Li Ying both laughed. Little brother may have listened to the rumors outside. Li Hu said with a smile, thinking that the Fuhu Martial Arts Hall's boxing technique is a family heirloom, an existence that cannot be exchanged for 10,000 gold, but in fact it is not like that. Isn't it? Chen Dao looked puzzled. That's what he heard outside. The techniques of the 3 major martial arts halls, including the 3 major families in the county, were all top secret, and will never be taught to outsiders. Of course not. Li Ying said, Brother Chen, you might as well think about it. If the Fuhu Fist is really so precious, how could we easily teach the boxing technique to those apprentices in the outer hall? Chen Dao opened his mouth, and found that he couldn't refute it. Just as Li Ying said, the apprentices who practice martial arts in the outer hall only need to pay 10 taels of silver to learn the Fuhu Fist in the martial arts hall, and some people even teach it personally. If the Fuhu Fist technique is like this, how could Li Hu easily teach the boxing technique to those apprentices? In fact, martial arts techniques are not precious, at least the lower 3 ranks of techniques are like this. Li Hu explained, those apprentices outside, if they don't need someone to teach them, and only want to buy the Fist Manual, they can buy one for 2 taels of silver. As for why there are rumors outside that boxing techniques are precious, it's probably because of the cost of martial arts practice. Compared to the techniques, the medicinal herbs needed for martial arts to nourish and strengthen the blood are the biggest problem, and also the mountain that blocks thousands of ordinary people from becoming martial artists. I see. Chen Dao suddenly realized, no wonder Li Hu generously gave him the Fist Manual. It turned out that the boxing technique was not as precious as he imagined, but because the cost of martial arts practice was too high, it would make outsiders feel that the boxing technique was extremely precious and could not be obtained without a family fortune of hundreds of millions. This Fist Manual, little brother, please accept it. After explaining clearly, Li Hu pushed the Fist Manual in front of Chen Dao again and said, little friend can practice the moves on the Fist Manual. It would be good if you can practice it, if not, at least you can learn some simple moves for self-defense. Chen Dao clasped his fists and said, then I will accept it respectfully. The consumption of martial arts practice on the body is extremely high. Li Hu instructed, with little brother's physical fitness, practicing the Fuhu Fist once a day is already the limit. Little brother must not be greedy for success. If you find any discomfort in your body during boxing practice, little brother must stop immediately, otherwise it will inevitably overconsume yourself and leave hidden injuries. Thank you for the reminder, Hall Master. Chen Dao sincerely thanked him, and had a better impression of Li Hu in his heart. As the Hall Master of Fuhu Martial Arts Hall, one of the major forces in the county, not only did he not rob his blood feather chicken, but also gave away the precious Fist Manual, and even reminded him of some details when practicing martial arts. Li Hu is indeed a person worthy of deep friendship. Then let's end here. After instructing Chen Dao, Li Hu got up and said, little brother, if you have more blood feather chickens in the future, you can continue to sell them to me, no matter how many, I will buy them all at 20 taels each. Chapter 49 Dangerous Cat. No problem. Chen Dao readily agreed. Before taking his leave, he said to Li Ying, Miss Li, I've also brought some white feather chickens this time. I wonder if you're interested. White feather chickens. Li Ying's eyes lit up, and she quickly said, yes. I want them all. Although blood feather chickens were good, for a foodie like Li Ying, there was ultimately too little meat. What she liked most were the plump and meaty white feather chickens and yellow feather chickens. They're outside. Miss Li, please come with me. The two walked out of the martial arts hall. Chen Dao nodded towards Chen Da and the others, who were waiting by the donkey cart, and then pointed to the chicken coops on the cart, saying to Li Ying, Miss Li, there are a total of 15 white feather chickens this time. Good, good, good. Hearing the number 15, Li Ying was even happier. She directly took out the silver and handed it to Chen Dao, 500 wen each, 15 would be 7.5 taels of silver. I don't have any copper coins here, so I'll just give you 8 taels of silver. Wei Zhe, come over and help me move these chickens inside. Li Ying summoned the gatekeeper, Wei Zhe, to carry the chicken coops into the hall. Chen Dao also took the opportunity to bid farewell, Miss Li, we'll be leaving now. Brother Chen, take care. After Chen Dao and his group left in the donkey cart, Li Ying returned to the backyard, only to see Li Hu examining the chicken coop placed on the table with a faraway look. Dad, what are you looking at? Of course, I'm looking at this blood feather chicken. Coming back to his senses, Li Hu said subconsciously, with this blood feather chicken, I'm afraid I'll be able to become a 7th rank martial artist in less than 2 months. Really? Li Ying said in surprise. If her father could become a 7th rank martial artist, then the survival of their martial arts hall in Taiping County would be more secure. Of course, it's true. Li Hu nodded with a smile. He was also looking forward to the day he would advance to become a 7th rank martial artist. Currently, the strongest martial artist in Taiping County was of 7th rank strength. Once he became a 7th rank, he would no longer need to act according to the whims of the 3 major families. Brother Chen is really capable. Li Ying couldn't help but exclaim, he can even capture this kind of chicken breed with demonic beast bloodlines. I wonder how a group of ordinary villagers managed to capture so many prey. That young friend Chen is not a simple person. Li Hu's eyes were deep as he recalled the interactions with Chen Dao. Yinger, haven't you noticed? That young friend Chen can read. Ah. Li Ying had obviously not noticed so many details and looked puzzled. Isn't Brother Chen a villager from outside the city? How can he know how to read? In this day and age, knowing how to read was not a simple matter, especially for the common people in the villages outside the city. Their entire village might not even have a literate scholar, and they had no way to learn to read. That's why I say young friend Chen is not simple. Li Hu carefully recalled every detail of his interaction with Chen Dao. It's not just because he can read in his way of speaking, but also because of the cat on his shoulder. Cat. Li Ying tilted her head and thought about it. There was indeed a cat lying on Chen Dao's shoulder all the time, but Li Ying was obviously not the kind of girl with a girlish heart who liked small animals, so she didn't pay too much attention. That cat gives me a very dangerous feeling. Li Hu said meaningfully, I even suspect that the cat has no less strength than me. Ah. Li Ying was stunned. Her father, Li Hu, was an 8th rank peak martial artist. What kind of cat could have the same strength as her father? Could it be a demonic beast? In short, try to befriend young friend Chen in the future. Li Hu solemnly instructed. Comma 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 comma. Comma 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 comma. Just as Li Hu and his daughter were talking, Chen Dao's donkey cart had already arrived at the East Market, where they saw Wu Han selling goods at his stall. Brother Wu. Brother Chen is here. After exchanging greetings, Chen Dao asked with a smile, Brother Wu, how's business been lately? Still the same old crap. Wu Han said with a gloomy face, with the government's tax increase order, the live chickens and ducks are completely unsellable. Brother Chen, look at this street. Apart from us vendors, where are the customers? Chen Dao looked around and found that it was indeed as Wu Han said. There were many peddlers selling goods on the whole street, but there were very few customers. It seems that Brother Wu's life is not easy either. Chen Dao sighed and then said to Wu Han, Brother Wu, I have a business deal here. I wonder if you are interested. Wu Han was indeed a businessman. Hearing the word business, his eyes immediately lit up. What business? Does Brother Wu remember the white feather chickens I used to sell here? White feather chickens. Of course, I remember. Wu Han nodded repeatedly. He had a very deep memory of Chen Dao's white feather chicken, for no other reason than that the white feather chicken had an excellent appearance and successfully sold for a high price of 500 wen. I plan to hand over the white feather chicken to you for sale. What do you think? Chen Dao said in a low voice. With the successful cultivation of the blood feather chicken and its successful sale at a high price, Chen Dao somewhat looked down on the business of white feather chickens and yellow feather chickens. After all, the profit from selling white feather chickens and yellow feather chickens was much lower than that of blood feather chickens. In the words of his previous life, the added value of the two chicken breeds, white feather chicken and yellow feather chicken, was relatively low. In addition, every time he sold white feather chickens and yellow feather chickens, Chen Dao needed to personally enter the city, which was too troublesome. So Chen Dao thought that instead of selling white feather chickens and yellow feather chickens himself, he might as well hand over this business to others, and he only needed to control the high-value chicken breed, blood feather chicken. And the person to do this was Wu Han, whom he was familiar with. As a peddler in the city, Wu Han must have some connections in the county. If this matter was handed over to him, there would definitely be no mistakes. Really? Wu Han's eyes lit up even more. He had been coveting Chen Dao's white feather chicken for a long time. That was a white feather chicken with an excellent appearance and 500 yuan each. If he could control the source of goods, wouldn't that mean the profit would be very considerable? Really? Chen Dao nodded seriously. Recently, the hunters in our village have found a large number of white feather chickens in the Kangmeng Mountains. We don't plan to sell these white feather chickens ourselves anymore. We are looking for a businessman familiar with the situation in the county to cooperate with. If Brother Wu is interested, let's talk about the specific details of the cooperation. I'm interested. Wu Han eagerly grabbed Chen Dao's hand. Brother Chen, be sure to hand over this business to me. Brother Wu, don't worry, we're so familiar, who else would I give this business to if not you? Brother Chen is generous. I, Lao Wu, didn't make a friend like you for nothing. Chapter 50 Calculation. After some pleasantries, Chen Dao brought up the price of the white feather chickens. Brother Wu, I can leave the business of these white feather chickens to you, but the price. Chen Dao trailed off, finally saying, let's say 400 yuan per chicken, how about it? 400 yuan per chicken. Wu Han's eyes darted around as he calculated in his mind whether he could make money at 400 yuan per white feather chicken. Considering Chen Dao's previous selling price of 500 yuan per white feather chicken, buying them for 400 yuan would definitely be profitable. But, the number of customers buying chickens in the city is decreasing, and Wu Han wasn't sure if he could sell the white feather chickens he bought for 400 yuan for the original 500 yuan. After hesitating for a moment, Wu Han said, Brother Chen, isn't 400 yuan per chicken a bit expensive? These days, there are very few families in the city buying chickens to eat. Your white feather chickens are good, but they might not sell for the previous high price of 500 yuan. Please rest assured about that, Brother Wu. Chen Dao smiled and said, I've already found a buyer for you. You just need to buy the white feather chickens from our village and sell them directly to Miss Li Ying of the Fuhu Martial Arts Academy. The reason Chen Dao approached Wu Han was to save himself the trouble of going into the city. As for the problem of not being able to sell them, that didn't exist. Li Ying, that foodie, could temporarily buy all the white feather and yellow feather chickens from Chen family village. As for what to do if the number of white feather and yellow feather chickens increased in the future and Li Ying couldn't buy them all, it wouldn't be too late to lower the price then. Meat is essential for humans. As long as you're willing to lower the price, there's no possibility of not being able to sell them. You've even found a buyer for me. Wu Han was overjoyed. Chen Dao had already found a buyer for him. He only needed to buy the white feather chickens from Chen family village and transport them. Such a simple and profitable business was a no-brainer. Then I have no problem. Brother Chen, I'll take this business. Great. Chen Dao nodded and said, from now on, Brother Wu, you can come to our village every 3 days to transport the white feather chickens we've caught to the city to sell. 3 days was exactly the cycle for raising white feather and yellow feather chickens. Wu Han's visit every 3 days corresponded perfectly to this cycle. So, it's settled then. It's settled. After discussing the white feather chicken business, Chen Dao looked at Wu Han's stall and asked, Brother Wu, we're planning to buy some gray feather chickens today. How many do you have in total? 5 in total. Wu Han knew the number of his gray feather chickens like the back of his hand and immediately stated the total. 5 is too few. Chen Dao shook his head and said, please do me a favor, Brother Wu, and call all the chicken vendors here. No problem. Soon, Wu Han ran off and called all the vendors on the street, then said to Chen Dao, Brother Chen, I've called all the chicken vendors here. You can tell us how many chickens you need. Chen Dao looked at the vendors, noticing the expectant looks in their eyes. For these vendors, these days had been difficult, and they naturally longed to sell some of their goods. However, Chen Dao didn't immediately state the number he needed but instead asked, Brother Wu, what's the current price of gray feather chickens per chicken? 180 yuan. Hearing this number, Chen Dao immediately knew that the price of grain in the city had probably risen again. otherwise, the price of live chickens wouldn't have soared so quickly. Chen Dao turned his head and discussed it with Chen Da for a while, then said to the chicken vendors, I'm planning to buy 50 gray feather chickens. At 150 yuan per chicken, can you accept this price? 50 chickens. This number instantly made the eyes of many chicken vendors light up. In these times, it was rare to see a customer buying 50 chickens in one go. This, young master, a vendor who looked to be around 50 years old, sized up Chen Dao and said, do you really want 50 chickens? Are you not tricking us? The others also looked at Chen Dao with burning eyes. Although Chen Dao had lowered the price considerably, the quantity of 50 chickens still made them eager to sell. Why would I trick you? Chen Dao said. He wasn't the one buying the gray feather chickens. His own yellow feather chickens bred so quickly, and they were all yellow feather chickens from the moment they hatched. Chen Dao would be a fool to buy gray feather chickens and start from scratch. Chen Dao wanted this batch of gray feather chickens. Chen Dao planned to use all 8 taels of silver he earned from selling chickens this time to buy gray feather chickens. If you can accept 150 yuan per chicken, then bring the chickens you're selling here, and I'll pay you. If you don't accept, then just leave. As soon as Chen Dao said this, many vendors immediately turned around and ran quickly to their stalls, bringing their gray feather chickens to Chen Dao. Young master, I have 6 gray feather chickens here. At 150 yuan per chicken, that's 900 yuan in total, a vendor said, pointing to the gray feather chickens in the cage with a flattering expression. These days, live poultry wasn't selling well in the entire East market. They couldn't afford to miss such a generous customer. Okay, Uncle Chen, give him the money. Chen Da took out 1 tael of silver and gave it to the vendor, who left with a happy expression. Seeing how readily Chen Dao paid, the other vendors also started to take action, presenting their chickens to Chen Dao. Young master, these are my chickens, 5 in total. These are mine, 4 in total. I have 10 here, that's 1.5 taels of silver. Quote. The transaction went smoothly. With money changing hands and goods being exchanged, Chen Da had spent almost all of his 8 taels of silver in less than a quarter of an hour. The 48 gray feather chickens that were bought were also placed in the chicken cages given by the vendors and carried onto the donkey cart by Chen Cheng and the others. There are so many chickens. Chen Zhong looked at the gray feather chickens clucking incessantly on the cart, his eyes full of envy. He had witnessed Chen Dao's transactions with the vendors and had personally seen Chen Da take out 8 taels of silver to buy gray feather chickens. He couldn't help but envy Chen Da's wealth. 8 taels of silver, that could buy so much grain. If the whole family ate steamed buns for every meal, they could probably eat for 6 months to a year. Brother Wu, I've finished buying the chickens, so I'll leave first. Don't forget our business. After buying the chickens, Chen Dao bid farewell to Wuhan and, together with Chen Da and the others, drove the donkey cart to the grain store in the East Market. Just as the donkey cart stopped outside the grain store, Chen Dao saw a young man in brocade clothes walking out of the grain store, surrounded by several people who looked like guards. The young man glanced at Chen Dao and the others, as well as the gray feather chickens clucking on the cart. A hint of disdain flashed across his face, but he didn't say anything, only leaving gracefully under the escort of his guards. Damn, who is this jerk? Chen Zhong, who was more sensitive, couldn't help but curse. The disdain on the young man's face was undisguised, which made him extremely angry. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 51 Sweet Bubbles. Say less, no one will think you're mute. Chen Da glared at Chen Zhong. The young man in brocade was surrounded by attendants and wore exquisite clothing. It was clear at a glance that he was a nobleman from the city, someone they absolutely couldn't afford to offend. However, although he told Chen Zhong to be quiet, Chen Da was also extremely annoyed. That kind of contemptuous gaze easily stung people's hearts. Damn it. This time, Chen Zhong didn't stop, but spat on the ground and cursed, "One day, I'll trample all these rich young masters who look down on me under my feet." That young man is clearly a nobleman from the city. It's normal for him to look down on us. Zhong, don't take it too seriously. Chen Si comforted Chen Zhong, but he also felt bad. This feeling of being looked down upon was really unpleasant. As for the Chen Cheng brothers, they didn't feel much. They were probably used to this kind of gaze. Even in the village, people would occasionally cast similar glances at them. Let's go in. Chen Dao didn't say anything. Perhaps because he had lived 2 lives, his ability to accept this kind of thing was much stronger than Chen Zhong and the other young men. In Chen Dao's view, other people's contemptuous gazes couldn't hurt him in the slightest. Why bother with them? Chen Dao stepped into the grain store, and the first thing that caught his eye was the rising grain price. Rice, 28 went catty. Millet, 26 went catty. White flour, 20 went catty. Sorghum flour, 13 went catty. Sorghum, 12 went catty. Bran powder, 6 went catty. Rice bran, 5 went catty. As Chen Dao expected, the grain price had risen considerably since his last visit. Rice, millet, and the like had increased by an average of 2 to 3 wen. 28 wen per pound of rice, even the people in the county town probably couldn't afford it. Imagine, in his previous life in China, what was the concept of 28 wen per pound of rice? Not to mention, in his previous life, it was much easier for ordinary people in China to earn 1 yuan than it was for people in this world to earn 1 copper coin. From this, you can see how terrifying a grain price of 28 wen per pound was for the common people. "Customer, what kind of grain do you want to buy?" A grain store clerk enthusiastically greeted him. Chen Dao waved his hand and went directly to the grain store owner in front of the counter. "Shopkeeper, I want to buy a lot of grain. I wonder if it can be cheaper." "That's probably difficult." The shopkeeper shook his head and said, "The master's young master has already been here and asked us not to sell at a lower price." Hearing this, Chen Dao couldn't help but think of the young man in brocade who had just walked out of the grain store. If there were no accidents, that person should be the young master the shopkeeper was talking about. As far as Chen Dao knew, this grain store in the East Market should belong to the Yuan family's property, which meant that the young man just now should be from the Yuan family. These big families are really... Chen Dao sighed secretly. The big families in the county town must have a lot of grain stored. After all, the vast majority of the land in Taiping County was controlled by these big families. The reason for the price increase was just to take advantage of the situation and hoard goods. But hadn't these big families ever thought that once the people couldn't afford to eat and rebelled, they would be the first to suffer? Perhaps they knew, but didn't care, or perhaps they had never taken the mud-legged people seriously. Chen Dao shook his head, dispelled the extra thoughts in his mind, and said to the shopkeeper, "Shopkeeper, I need 200 jin of white flour, 200 jin of rice, 200 jin of sorghum, and 300 jin of rice bran." Chen Dao reported the amount of grain he needed. In fact, Chen Dao's original intention was to exchange most of his silver for grain, but considering the limited carrying capacity of the donkey cart, he chose to buy less. The shopkeeper's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly took out an abacus and began to calculate. 200 jin of rice is 5,600 wen, 200 jin of white flour is 4,000 wen, 200 jin of sorghum is 2,400 wen, 300 jin of rice bran is 1,500 wen, a total of 13 taels and 500 wen. "Customer, is that right?" The shopkeeper looked at Chen Dao in front of him, his face full of smiles, but he was somewhat suspicious in his heart, wondering if this young man could really take out so much silver. That's right. Chen Dao's mental arithmetic ability was very good. Knowing that the shopkeeper's calculation was correct, he took out 14 taels of silver from the money bag given by Li Ying and handed it to the shopkeeper. "Shopkeeper, please pack the grain and move it to the donkey cart outside." "No problem." The shopkeeper readily handed 500 copper coins to Chen Dao, and then called the clerk to start packing the grain and moving it to the donkey cart outside. "Dao, how much grain did you buy?" Outside the grain store, Chen Si, who had been guarding the donkey cart, looked at the bags of grain placed on the donkey cart, his expression sluggish. The Chen Cheng brothers' eyes lit up. Chen Dao bought so much grain, which meant that their previous guess that Chen Dao's family had no grain was wrong, and it also meant that they didn't have to worry about Chen Dao stopping building the house because of the shortage of grain at home. So much grain. Dao is too rich, Chen Shi said with drool. With Dao's generosity, he bought so much grain, would he still lack food for them? As soon as he thought that he could eat fragrant steamed buns every day in the future, Chen Shi felt as if his whole person was soaked in honey water, bubbling with sweetness. Chen Dao also looked at the bags of grain being moved onto the donkey cart with a smile on his face. Although his family temporarily had enough grain, he still felt very at ease seeing so much grain. Soon, a total of 900 jin of grain was placed on the donkey cart, almost piled up into a small mountain on the cart. Chen Dao looked at the carriage that was full, and said with a smile to the others, "It seems we have to walk back." A large amount of grain filled the carriage, and there was no space for people to sit except for the driving position. The others could only follow the donkey cart and walk back to the village. "What's the big deal?" Chen Cheng scratched his head and said with a silly smile, "It's only a dozen miles, it's not far." Chen Da and others also nodded in agreement. A dozen miles was not far for them who often did physical work. Okay, let's go then. Chen Dao said, let's go to Bayakao Hall first. About a quarter of an hour later, the donkey cart stopped outside Bayakao Hall. Chen Dao asked everyone to wait outside and walked into Bayakao Hall himself. Walking into Bayakao Hall, he saw that the usual shopkeeper Su Shihua was not there. Behind the counter was Su Chaoshi. Perhaps because there were no customers, Su Chaoshi was dozing off behind the counter, her arm supporting her cheek, revealing a section of snow-white wrist, her pretty face nodding little by little, as if she was about to fall onto the table at any time, with a trace of crystal hanging from her lips. Miss Su. Chen Dao called softly, but Su Chaoshi didn't respond at all. Seeing this, Chen Dao couldn't help but find it a little funny. This girl was too lacking in vigilance. The store was open, and she fell asleep. Wasn't she afraid of others coming in to steal things? Miss Su. Chen Dao knocked on the table of the counter, increasing the volume a little. Ah! Su Chaoshi woke up suddenly and leaned back subconsciously. It wasn't until she saw that the person was Chen Dao that she breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Young Master Chen, it's you." Chen Dao smiled without saying a word and pointed to the corner of Su Chaoshi's mouth. Chapter 52 Hello, Xiaoyuan. Su Chaoshi's face flushed red, and she hurriedly turned her head away to wipe the saliva from the corner of her mouth. Then, she turned back to Chen Dao and said, "Chen Gongzi, you must be laughing at me." Chen Dao smiled and asked, "Is shopkeeper Su not here?" "Grandpa is old and easily tired. He is resting in the backyard now." Chen Dao nodded and said, "I want to buy some blood coagulation fruit." "No problem. Chen Gongzi, how much do you need?" Su Chaoshi was about to turn around and go to the back to get the blood coagulation fruit, but her eyes suddenly fixed on the small round figure on Chen Dao's shoulder. Wow! A look of surprise bloomed in Su Chaoshi's beautiful eyes. What a cute kitten! Ying ying. Xiaoyuan let out a dissatisfied ying ying sound, seemingly not very satisfied with being called a kitten. But this cry from Xiaoyuan made Su Chaoshi like it even more. She stared unblinkingly at Xiaoyuan's round, adorable face and couldn't help but beg, "Chen Gongzi, can you let me hold it?" Of course. Chen Dao smiled and nodded, instructing Xiaoyuan, "Xiaoyuan, don't hurt anyone." After saying that, Chen Dao took Xiaoyuan off his shoulder and placed it on the counter. So beautiful. Su Chaoshi happily picked up Xiaoyuan, her eyes full of affection. She had no resistance to such cute, seemingly harmless little animals. Holding Xiaoyuan, Su Chaoshi stroked its fur from time to time and even kissed its cheeks with her rounded little mouth, clearly showing her love for Xiaoyuan to the core. After playing with Xiaoyuan for a while, Su Chaoshi looked up and asked, "Chen Gongzi, is it called Xiaoyuan?" "Yes. Hello, Xiaoyuan." Su Chaoshi gently touched Xiaoyuan's wet nose with her slender fingers, and the smile on her face never stopped. After playing with Xiaoyuan for a full quarter of an hour, Su Chaoshi remembered the matter at hand and said to Chen Dao while holding Xiaoyuan, "Chen Gongzi, how much blood coagulation fruit do you need?" "As much as you have." Chen Dao said boldly. Ah! Su Chaoshi was taken aback and said, "Our store has quite a lot of blood coagulation fruit." "Chen Gongzi, are you sure you want all of it?" "I'm sure." Chen Dao nodded seriously. The last time he brought back the blood coagulation fruit, after cultivating 8 blood feather chickens in Xiaoyuan, it was almost used up. Now, Chen Dao urgently needed new blood coagulation fruit, and the more the better. With more than 80 taels of silver in hand, Chen Dao was not worried about not being able to afford all the blood coagulation fruit in 100 Herbs Hall. "Then I'll help you see how much there is first." Su Chaoshi reluctantly placed Xiaoyuan on the counter and then walked into the backyard. Soon, she came back carrying a package, placed it on the table, and said to Chen Dao, "Chen Gongzi, this is all the blood coagulation fruit in our store, a total of 150. Do you want to count them?" "No need. I trust you." Chen Dao's simple words warmed Su Chaoshi's heart. This feeling of being trusted was really quite nice. A total of 2 taels and 70 qian, 1 qian equals 100 went right, Miss Su. That's right. After the transaction was completed, Chen Dao seemed to remember something and asked, "Miss Su, have you heard of these medicinal herbs? Blood spirit fungus, phoenix tail flower, iron heart bamboo, and bear blood flower?" Chen Dao originally wanted to ask Li Ying about the materials needed for the blood feather chicken in Xiaoyuan to advance. After all, Li Ying had a higher status in Taiping County and might know more. But after Li Ying took him to meet Li Hu, Chen Dao gave up the idea of asking Li Ying. As an ordinary person who was not a martial artist, constantly asking about herbs would easily arouse suspicion. Therefore, Chen Dao had no choice but to settle for second best and choose to ask Su Chaoshi at the pharmacy. Hearing the question, Su Chaoshi frowned and thought for a while, then replied, Chen Gongzi, of the medicinal herbs you mentioned, I have only heard of blood spirit fungus, phoenix tail flower, and bear blood flower. Oh, Chen Dao's eyes lit up. Having 3 was not bad either, and he quickly asked, may I ask, Miss Su, are they sold in the store? No, Su Chaoshi gave an answer that disappointed Chen Dao. These 3 medicinal herbs are all things used by martial artists. Our small store cannot obtain them and does not dare to sell them. After saying that, Su Chaoshi seemed afraid that Chen Dao would not understand and continued to explain, Chen Gongzi, you may not know this, but in the entire Taiping County, all the medicinal herbs used by martial artists are monopolized by the 3 major families, and only the 3 major families can sell such medicinal herbs. If other pharmacies that do not belong to the 3 major families sell such medicinal herbs and are discovered by the 3 major families, the consequences would be unimaginable. Isn't that too overbearing? Chen Dao said subconsciously. Shish. Su Chaoshi put her index finger to her red lips, glanced at the direction of the door, and said cautiously, Chen Gongzi, never say such things again in the future. If others hear it, I'm afraid. Su Chaoshi didn't say what she was afraid of, but Chen Dao sensed the seriousness of the matter from her expression. From this, he could also see how influential the 3 major families were in Taiping County. The common people didn't even dare to discuss them. What's the difference between this and a local emperor? Chen Dao was a sensible person and didn't insist on recklessly criticizing the 3 major families. As for going to the pharmacies run by the 3 major families to buy advancement materials. Therefore, Chen Dao took the opportunity to bid farewell to Su Chaoshi, Miss Su, then I'll leave first. With that, Chen Dao turned to leave. But at this moment, Su Chaoshi opened her mouth somewhat embarrassedly and said, Chen Gongzi, can you stay a little longer? Chen Dao thought that Su Chaoshi had something she wanted him to help with, but he saw Su Chaoshi's beautiful eyes staring straight at Xiao Yuan. Obviously, the one she really wanted to keep was Xiao Yuan, not Chen Dao. All right, Chen Dao nodded. Seeing this, Su Chaoshi immediately became happy, picked up Xiao Yuan, and madly stroked its head, her pretty face full of affection. While Su Chaoshi was playing with Xiao Yuan, Chen Dao was not idle either, and said to Su Chaoshi, Miss Su, can I trouble your pharmacy to help me buy more blood coagulation fruit? Chen Gongzi, do you need more blood coagulation fruit? Yes. If possible, please trouble Miss Su to help me buy more. I will come by every once in a while to buy them. No problem. Su Chaoshi was ultimately simple-minded and didn't ask what Chen Dao was going to do with so much blood coagulation fruit, and readily agreed. However, she still kindly reminded him, Chen Gongzi, although blood coagulation fruit has some effect of nourishing qi and blood, it is not suitable to eat too much. It is best for Chen Gongzi to use it sparingly. I know, thank you for the reminder, Miss Su. After another quarter of an hour, Su Chaoshi reluctantly returned Xiao Yuan to Chen Dao, and said with a face full of reluctance, Chen Gongzi, come often in the future. Chen Dao naturally knew that Su Chaoshi hoped that Xiao Yuan would come often, not himself, but he didn't say anything, just nodded and said, okay, Miss Su. Walking out of 100 Herbs Hall, Chen Dao said to Chen Cheng and the others guarding the donkey cart, let's go. Back to the village. Back to the village. The donkey cart started, driven by Chen Si, and the group followed beside the cart, walking slowly towards the outside of the city. Outside the city gate, Chen Dao and the others were still greeted by the greedy, thirsty gazes of many refugees. The donkey cart, piled high with grain, was like a carrot dangling in front of a donkey, firmly attracting the refugees' attention, unwilling to move away even a bit. So much grain. There must be at least 1,000 caddies of grain, right? How great would it be if this grain was mine? That way, my mother and my sister wouldn't have to starve to death. Quote. The refugees' eyes flickered with greedy light, wishing they could rush up and snatch all the grain from the donkey cart. Fortunately, when this thought arose in their minds, they saw Chen Cheng and the others beside the donkey cart. Chen Cheng was tall and strong, and looked like someone not to be trifled with. Chen Dao and the others also didn't look like people who were easy to bully. Many refugees had no choice but to suppress the restlessness in their hearts and watch helplessly as the donkey cart slowly left their sight. Stop. 1 kilometer away from the city gate, Chen Dao suddenly held the bow and arrow in his hand, looking solemnly at the figure rushing towards them at high speed. Thump. The figure suddenly stopped abruptly 5 meters in front of the donkey cart, and with a thump, knelt on the dirt ground. Several lords, please have mercy. As long as you give my child a bite to eat, you can make me do anything. It was not until this person spoke that Chen Dao and the others realized that the person rushing towards the donkey cart was actually a woman. It wasn't that Chen Dao and the others had bad eyesight, but the woman was dressed in rags, her face was covered in dirt, and when she didn't speak, it was really impossible to tell her gender. Lords, please give my child some food. She is about to starve to death. I beg you. The woman knelt beside the donkey cart, kowtowing again and again. Each kowtow was extremely forceful, deeply smashing into the dirt, making her entire forehead black and yellow, like a mud figure. Chapter 53 Liangzhou. Chen Dao silently gazed at the woman before him. She was clearly a refugee, her clothes tattered and revealing patches of skin that wasn't particularly fair. In her arms, she held a child who looked to be around 5 or 6 years old. The child's eyes were tightly closed, and her face was pale with a hint of green, a sign of both hunger and cold. Chen Dao raised his foot to walk towards the woman, but Chen Dao reached out to stop him. Chen Dao waved his hand, indicating it was all right. Getting closer, Chen Dao could see more clearly. The woman kneeling before the donkey cart was extremely thin, her ragged clothes hanging loosely on her frame. The child she held was a girl, now barely clinging to life. Sir, please, give us some food. My child is dying. Please, I beg you. Sir, save my child, just a bite to eat, I'll do anything. Quote. The woman didn't seem to notice Chen Dao's approach, only continuing to kowtow, her forehead hammering a small pit into the ground. Watching this scene unfold, Chen Dao couldn't help but feel conflicted. He wasn't a heartless person, on the contrary, he was easily consumed by the suffering of others, often falling into mental exhaustion. In his previous life, when Chen Dao scrolled through Douyin TikTok, he felt particularly pained whenever he saw videos depicting human suffering. He always wanted to help those in need but felt powerless. Chen Dao even donated a considerable amount to charities until he later learned about their corrupt practices. He stopped donating and never gave another cent afterward. In his previous life, Chen Dao often turned a blind eye to the suffering of others because he lacked the ability to help. But now, when this woman knelt before him, Chen Dao still couldn't ignore her plight. Chen Dao moved closer again and softly said to the woman, "Get up." The woman seemed surprised to receive a response. Her kowtowing paused for a moment as she looked up at Chen Dao. "This, young master, what did you say? Get up, let me see the child." Chen Dao said again. The woman's eyes lit up, and she quickly scrambled to her feet, offering the child she had been warming in her arms to Chen Dao. Chen Dao carefully examined the girl's face and asked, "Is she hungry?" "Yes, young master, we haven't eaten in 5 days. 5 days without food." Chen Dao couldn't help but feel moved. Human life could be so fragile, yet sometimes so incredibly resilient. To survive 5 days without food was truly remarkable. Chen Dao beckoned to Chen Cheng. "Cheng Zhe, bring the dry rations and water bag over here." Chen Dao had brought some steamed buns and a water bag with him on this trip to the city, intending to prevent hunger on the road, but he never expected them to be used in this way. Coming, Dao Zhe. Chen Cheng took off the package containing the buns and handed it to Chen Dao along with the water bag. "Feed some to your child first." Chen Dao took out a bun and handed it to the woman. The woman gratefully accepted it and tore off a small piece, placing it in the girl's mouth. The unconscious girl's mouth moved instinctively, chewing and swallowing the bun. "That's wonderful." Seeing the girl swallow the bun, the woman quickened her pace, tearing off small pieces and feeding them to the girl. At the same time, to prevent the girl from choking, she also poured some water into her mouth. Soon, the entire bun was finished, and the girl's pale complexion immediately improved. Seeing this, the woman finally relieved the burden in her heart and repeatedly thanked Chen Dao. "Thank you, benefactor, I kowtow to you." The woman was truly sincere, immediately kowtowing 3 times to Chen Dao. Chen Dao was never comfortable with others kneeling before him and quickly grabbed the woman's wrist, helping her up. "No need to kowtow." "All right, benefactor." The woman was very obedient, immediately standing up and standing respectfully before Chen Dao. "Benefactor, I keep my word. From now on, I am your person. You can make me work like an ox or a horse." "What do you mean, my person?" Chen Dao couldn't help but feel amused. The ambiguity of those words was a bit too much. Chen Dao decided to ignore it. "What's your name?" "My name is Ding Shalwa, and my daughter's name is Chuji." What about your husband? My husband starved to death long ago. On the road to escape the famine, he left the last of the food for me and my daughter, and he starved to death in the wilderness. When she spoke of her deceased husband, a look of sadness appeared on the woman's face. Chen Dao couldn't help but feel heavy-hearted. Where did you escape from? Liangzhou, in the north. Liangzhou. Chen Dao was stunned. This was Qingzhou territory. How could refugees from Liangzhou escape to Qingzhou? The Xia Kingdom had 9 provinces. If you viewed the map of the Xia Kingdom as a square 9-palace grid, the upper 3 provinces, from left to right, were Liangzhou, Yuzhou, and Mingzhou. The middle 3 provinces were Qingzhou, Jingzhou, and Yuzhou. The lower 3 provinces were Yuezhou, Chongzhou, and Haizhou. Although Qingzhou bordered Liangzhou, it was still hard to imagine crossing an entire province to escape to Qingzhou. Why did you run from Liangzhou to Qingzhou? Chen Dao asked, puzzled. Benefactor, you don't know, but it's impossible to live in Liangzhou anymore. Ding Shalwa said with a worried expression. Liangzhou is conscripting men for the battlefield every year. Anyone with a male in the family can't escape the government's conscription. On top of that, the weather is cold, and the land can't produce food. With fewer men in the family, I don't know how many people are starving to death in Liangzhou. Is the situation in Liangzhou that bad? Chen Dao was shocked. He had heard Li Zheng, the scholar in the village, say that the 3 northern provinces were bitterly cold and far less wealthy than Qingzhou, but it shouldn't be this dire, right? Not only was the weather cold and the land unable to produce food, but they also had to face the government's conscription and all sorts of exorbitant taxes. Taiping County was located at the border of Qingzhou and Liangzhou. For some refugees living on the border of Liangzhou, coming to Qingzhou was much easier than going to the county seat, prefecture city, or state capital of Liangzhou. This world is too chaotic. Chen Dao sighed inwardly. From Ding Shalwa's description, it was clear that the people of Liangzhou could no longer survive. And when the people could no longer survive, rising up in rebellion became a matter of course. Chapter 54, Sailing on Dry Land. To be honest, although Chen Dao didn't like the corrupt ruling class of the feudal empire, he still didn't want the world to be in chaos, because in a chaotic world, the common people at the bottom always suffer the most. It's a pity that this kind of thing won't change because of his thoughts, and all he can do is take care of himself. Chen Dao retracted his divergent thoughts and looked at Ding Shalwa and said, what are you going to do next? Hearing this, Ding Shalwa thought for a while and said, I don't know either. I heard them say that I could survive if I came to Taiping County, so I followed them. I never thought that the county seat would be so far away. The food that my man and I brought was all eaten up on the road. If we hadn't met you, benefactor, I'm afraid even my daughter wouldn't have survived. Tears blurred Ding Shalwa's eyes, mixing with the dirt on her face and turning into a turbid liquid. Only she herself knows how difficult this journey has been. With only a small amount of dry food, she embarked on the road of escape with her husband and daughter. From the arid land of Liangzhou, they traveled by foot to the Qingzhou area. Hundreds of miles, which seems to be only a 1-hour high-speed rail journey to people on Earth. But for Ding Shalwa, who traveled hundreds of miles on foot, it was a longer road than the past 20 years of her life. Along the way, she, her husband, and daughter quenched their thirst with wind and dew, and satisfied their hunger with the few remaining grains, even. Because of the lack of food, her husband starved to death on the road. Ding Shalwa was especially grateful that she met the kind-hearted Chen Dao and his party, otherwise, I'm afraid even her daughter would have starved to death here. Alas! Chen Dao sighed softly, looked at Ding Shalwa's tear-blurred face, took out a steamed bun from his bag, and handed it to Ding Shalwa. When he fed Ding Shalwa's daughter earlier, Chen Dao noticed the look of longing in Ding Shalwa's eyes. Obviously, Ding Shalwa herself probably hadn't eaten for a long time, and her stomach was burning with hunger. Thank you, young master. Ding Shalwa was obviously extremely hungry. After saying thank you, she grabbed the steamed bun and devoured it. If you are willing, you can come with me. If you are not willing, it doesn't matter, just continue to the county seat. I am willing to go with you, benefactor. I am willing to go with you. Ding Shalwa nodded hastily. She was not stupid. She knew that she might not be able to survive even if she went to the county seat. On the contrary, following Chen Dao gave her hope of survival. As for whether it was appropriate for a widow to follow a group of big men with her daughter, Ding Shalwa didn't even bother to consider this kind of thing. If you can't even survive, how can you care about the separation of men and women? Then let's go. The donkey cart restarted, and the heavy goods on the cart pressed deep ruts into the dirt road. Chen Dao, Chen Cheng, and others guarded the left and right sides of the donkey cart, their eyes constantly watching the movement in the nearby woods. Ding Shalwa carried her daughter on her back and followed behind the crowd, her eyes shining, as if she saw hope for survival. Weep, weep. After walking for a while, Xiao Yuan on Chen Dao's shoulder suddenly made a sound. Chen Dao, who had been with Xiao Yuan day and night, noticed the difference in Xiao Yuan's cry this time and immediately signaled everyone to stop. At the same time, in the woods on the right side of the official road, figures appeared one after another. They are bandits hiding in the forest. Chen Da stared sharply to the right, his heart heavy. The most feared thing about walking on the official road is these forest bandits hiding in the forest. These forest bandits may not have much martial power, but they are all good at robbing goods. They regard those freight convoys as prey, and specialize in targeting convoys with more wealth. The group of forest bandits that appeared at this time was obviously eyeing the grain on their donkey cart. Chen Cheng and the others also looked nervous and couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive. This was their first time encountering these bandits called forest bandits on the official road. In the eyes of several people, more and more figures appeared from the forest, and soon exceeded double digits. These forest bandits have a variety of weapons, some with wooden sticks, with iron or stone spearheads at the front of the wooden sticks, some with knives, and of course, some with the most rudimentary weapons such as stones and wooden sticks. That's right. Leave half of the grain in the woman, and you can leave safely. Hand over half of the grain on the cart, otherwise don't blame us for being rude. Leave half of the wealth. Quote. The other minions echoed the bearded man's words loudly. If it were not for the unavoidable situation, they would still be unwilling to fight Chen Dao and his party. After all, Chen Cheng's size was really intimidating. In addition, Chen Da had already held the bow in his hand and put the arrow on the bowstring, aiming it at their group. Chen Dao calmly looked at the bandits opposite him, expressionless. These bandits didn't look much better than the refugees outside the county seat. They were all ragged and emaciated, except for the bearded man who was a little stronger. Of course, although these forest bandits looked very weak, the weapons in their hands were still somewhat threatening. In addition, they had the advantage of numbers, and ordinary freight convoys were unwilling to provoke them, and most of them would choose to pay to avoid disaster. But this group of bandits wanted too much, half of the grain on the cart, and even planned to kidnap Ding Shalwa. Let alone Chen Dao, even Chen Da couldn't accept this kind of thing. Chen Da aimed the bow and arrow at the leading bearded man and said in a negotiating tone, "Good fellows, half of the grain is too much, can we discuss it?" "That's right. You must hand over half of the grain. Boss, let's just kill them, so that all the grain will be ours." "That's right. Kill them. Anyway, the government can't control this place. Kill them." The minions under the bearded man were making a fuss, not caring about the consequences. Most of the bottom-level minions didn't think so much. They just subconsciously thought that their side had more people and the other side had fewer people. As long as they relied on the number of people to kill all the people on the opposite side, then the grain and women on the cart would be theirs, and there was no need to bargain with Chen Dao and others. Listening to the booing of his subordinates, the bearded man didn't show any expression, just stared at Chen Da and Chen Cheng, who were the biggest threats, and said in a threatening tone, "I'll give you a quarter of an hour to consider, hand over half of the grain and that woman, or die." Chapter 55, Madoka Horror. Ding Shalwa's face turned ashen with fright. Oh, no, actually, her face was already covered in dirt, so it was earthen-colored even without being scared. She trembled all over, clutching the unconscious child tightly, her eyes fixed on Chen Dao and the others, fearing they would hand her over. Chen Da frowned, pondering a solution. As for Chen Zhong and the others, although they were nervous, they still faced the bandits directly, not showing any fear. Only Chen Cheng, not only was he not afraid, but he even asked Chen Dao, "Brother Dao, do you want me to beat them up?" Chen Dao shook his head, not saying anything, just sighing softly in his heart. From a certain perspective, these bandits could also be considered unfortunates. Perhaps they were originally just honest farmers, forced to Lengshan and become bandits by this cruel world. However, no matter what kind of people they were originally, when they threatened Chen Dao's property or even his life, they became enemies to Chen Dao. "Xiao Yuan, take them out." "Ying ying ying." Xiao Yuan responded immediately, leaping down from Chen Dao's shoulder. The moment it landed, Xiao Yuan launched itself, turning into a blur in everyone's sight. What was that? Before the bearded man could even see Xiao Yuan's movements clearly, a scream came from behind him. "Ah!" 3 streaks of blood instantly appeared on the neck of a bandit behind the bearded man who was wielding a wooden stick as a weapon. The streaks of blood gradually widened in sight, and then, blood spurted out, staining the bandits in front of him with blood. What the hell is that thing? The bandit who was splashed with blood on his face retreated in fright, and the other bandits also shrank their pupils, feeling fear in their hearts. Be careful, the bearded man hurriedly reminded everyone. But as soon as his words fell, another scream came, and the subordinate who had been splashed with blood on his face also had fatal wounds on his neck, and blood spurted out like a fountain, staining the nearby fallen leaves and soil red. Damn it! What the hell is this thing? Xiao Yuan's speed was too fast, and the bearded man's vision couldn't capture its movements at all. As for Chen Cheng and the others, they were stunned. They had seen the cat on Chen Dao's shoulder before, and they always thought it was just a pet raised by Chen Dao, but they never thought that pet, which looked extremely beautiful and harmless to humans and animals, actually had such lethality, and its speed was so fast that even their eyes couldn't keep up. That weasel is so powerful. Chen Dao was even more shocked. Xiao Yuan was the one he personally gave to Chen Dao. Before he gave it to Chen Dao, Xiao Yuan was completely a representative of being silly and cute. It looked silly and had no attack power at all. Except for being good-looking, it was useless. He even planned to kill Xiao Yuan and eat its meat, and then sell its fur. Thinking of this, Chen Dao couldn't help but shudder. This weasel had only been given to Chen Dao for a few days, and it had become so powerful. Would it remember that he planned to slaughter it and take revenge on him? Just as Chen Dao was thinking about whether Xiao Yuan would take revenge on him, the screams in the forest were endless. Xiao Yuan moved nimbly and swiftly among the many bandits, and every attack was fatal. Every time its claws waved, it would leave a fatal wound on a bandit's neck. A large amount of blood spurted onto the ground, staining the fallen leaves red. Looking at his subordinates falling to the ground one after another, the bearded man almost collapsed. What the hell is this thing? The bearded man's hands and feet were cold. He never thought that this group of people, whom he regarded as fat sheep, would have such a ghostly thing. Not only was it extremely fast, but its attacks were also extremely sharp, leaving him with no room for any counterattack. He could only watch helplessly as one subordinate after another fell to the ground weakly. A few more screams came, and the bearded man looked back, only to see that all the subordinates behind him had fallen to the ground, and the blood that spurted out had gathered into a small stream on the ground. It was at this time that the bearded man finally saw Xiao Yuan's figure clearly. It was an animal that looked like a cat, with a round face covered with white and brown fur, and a moist nose, looking harmless to humans and animals. But it was such a harmless animal that slaughtered all his subordinates in just a few breaths. This is not a harmless little animal at all, it is clearly a life-threatening monster. Poochie. A pain came from his neck, and the bearded man only felt the strength in his body constantly draining away. Gradually, his eyes blurred, his body softened, and he fell to the ground covered with fallen leaves. They're all dead. Chen Zhong widened his eyes, looking at the corpses lying on the ground, his pupils trembling slightly. Chen Cheng and the others also looked at the bandits who had all been killed with shock on their faces, feeling horrified in their hearts. In just a few breaths, a dozen bandits were killed cleanly, and they couldn't even resist. Everyone looked at Xiao Yuan, who had jumped back onto Chen Dao's shoulder and was lying down. Their impression of this little cat, which looked beautiful and harmless to humans and animals, had completely changed. This was not harmless to humans and animals at all. The king of hell who demanded lives was nothing more than this, right? Brother Dao. Chen Dao licked his face and came to Chen Dao's side silently, and said cautiously, "Is this weasel the one I gave you a few days ago?" "Yes." Chen Dao's answer immediately made Chen Dao's heart ashen. It's over, it's over. This weasel is so powerful. I was thinking about slaughtering it a few days ago. It will definitely take revenge on me, right? Chen Dao had heard the old hunters in the village say when he was a child that weasels are very petty animals, and it will definitely not let go of itself who wanted to slaughter it and eat its meat. Uncle Chen, don't worry, Xiao Yuan is not that petty. Chen Dao stroked Xiao Yuan's head and comforted Chen Dao. Xiao Yuan also cooperated and squeaked twice, as if echoing Chen Dao's words. It's just. Chen Dao looked at Xiao Yuan, who kept waving its two front paws, as if demonstrating to himself, and always felt a little cold in his body. Okay, let's go back to the village. Chen Dao spoke to welcome everyone who was in a trance, restarted the donkey cart, and walked along the official road towards Chenjia village. Comma. Chenjia village. Near Chen Dao's house construction site, the villagers who had nothing to do gathered together in twos and threes. Since Chen Dao's family started building the house, this place has become a gathering place for the villagers. Gathering here is to watch the excitement, chat and pass the time together, and secondly, there will be more people to warm up and help each other resist the cold weather. Brother Dao and the others haven't come back yet, a middle-aged woman said, looking in the direction of the village entrance. As early as this morning, the news that Chen Dao and others were going to enter the city had spread throughout Chenjia village. The villagers also knew that Chen Dao and others would not start work today, but this did not prevent them from gathering here to chat. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 56, Huge Numbers. Dao Ji and the others went to town to buy grain. They're really well off, a male villager said with envy. The others nodded in agreement. Dao Ji's family and the Chen Dao family are living better than the village chief these days. Of course, they have white flour buns every meal. Even those big eaters like Chen Cheng can eat their fill of white flour buns. The village chief's family can't afford that every day. Dao Ji's family is living like gods. I wonder how much grain Dao Ji will bring back this time. Quote. The villagers' conversations always revolved around the wealth of the Chen Dao family. When they talked about the Chen Dao family, their faces were full of longing and envy. However, envy was still envy. After so many days, the villagers had probably gotten used to it. Although they couldn't help but be envious when Chen Dao was mentioned, they were able to treat it with a normal attitude after all. However, their normalcy was about to dissipate. Just as everyone was chatting idly, a donkey cart slowly drove in from the direction of the village entrance. Looking at the mountain of grain sacks on the cart, the eyes of these onlookers almost turned green with envy. Isn't that the village chief's donkey cart? Yes, that donkey has a scar on its forehead. I remember it clearly. Damn it, the donkey cart is full of grain. How much grain is that? Looking at those grain sacks underneath, you can tell it's rice. Damn it, so many sacks, how much rice is that? Look at the wheel tracks. They're so deep they're almost sinking into the ground. I reckon there must be over 1,000 caddies of grain. I think it's at least 2,000 caddies. Less. At least 3,000 caddies. Quote. The villagers' statements were quite reminiscent of the Great Leap Forward era in our country, aiming to shock. Saying 1,000 caddies was somewhat plausible, but saying 2,000 or 3,000 caddies was truly outrageous. With that wooden donkey cart, putting 3,000 caddies of grain on it would cause it to fall apart in minutes. The wheels would probably be crushed. Even if it didn't fall apart, that load-bearing capacity wouldn't be something a donkey could handle. The reason for these shocking remarks was simply that the villagers were speechless due to extreme shock. At this moment, every single villager's eyes were fixed on the donkey cart, as if they were looking at a mountain of gold and silver. From a certain perspective, the grain on the donkey cart was indeed as precious as a mountain of gold and silver to the villagers, even more precious than gold and silver. After all, in these times, not having money isn't a big deal, but not having grain at home means people will starve to death. Dao Ji, a young and strong man named Chen Go couldn't help but approach the donkey cart, next to Chen Dao, and asked with a drooling expression, "Did you empty out the grain store in the county town?" "Go Ji, you're joking." Chen Dao replied with a smile, "I only bought 900 caddies of grain. How could I empty out the grain store? 900 caddies. Chen Go was struck by lightning, and his whole body froze. 900 caddies of grain was like an astronomical figure to him, and yet, Chen Dao even used the word, only. That word, only, coupled with the number 900 caddies, almost made Chen Go want to punch Chen Dao in the face. It was too damn infuriating. There's actually 900 caddies. Dao Ji's family is too rich, isn't it? Even the landlord's family doesn't have that much grain. Look at those big eaters, Chen Cheng and his brothers. Their mouths are almost grinning from ear to ear. Dao Ji bought so much grain. Won't they have plenty to eat? The Chen Cheng brothers really lucked out. Following Dao Ji, they eat their fill every day, their mouths dripping with oil. I also want to work with Dao Ji. Why can't Dao Ji see me? I want to marry Dao Ji. I want to eat buns every day. Quote. Amidst the villagers' envious gazes, the donkey cart slowly stopped in front of Chen Dao's house. Creak. Li Ping and He Quilian, who had long heard the commotion, opened the front yard gate and said with a smile, "You're back." Yes. Chen Dao nodded and said to Chen Cheng and the others, "Cheng Ji, please help me move the grain in." "Look at what you're saying, Dao Ji." This little thing is no trouble at all. Chen Cheng was always the most enthusiastic worker. He and his two brothers began to carry the grain, and Chen Dao, Chen Zhong, and Chen Si also joined in. As for Chen Dao, he naturally didn't need to lift a finger for this kind of work. Dao Ji, how much grain did you buy? Li Ping couldn't help but ask, looking at the sacks of grain being carried into the house one after another. Even He Quilian stared intently at Chen Dao, anticipating his answer. A total of 900 caddies. Chen Dao's voice fell. Li Ping and He Quilian instantly fell into a frozen state. What was the concept of 900 caddies of grain? In years of peace, this number wouldn't be too big, only the harvest from about 3 acres of land. But in these times, 900 caddies of grain was a huge number. It's no exaggeration to say that the entire Chen family village, with over 100 households, probably doesn't have 900 caddies of grain combined, and that's including things like rice bran and wheat bran. And Chen Dao went to the county town and brought back so much grain. I originally wanted to buy 2 or 3,000 caddies, but the donkey cart really couldn't hold it, so I could only buy 900 caddies back first. Chen Dao's additional sentence instantly caused Li Ping and He Quilian's brains to enter an even more prolonged state of shutdown. 3,000 caddies of grain, this was a number that the two women had never dared to dream of. Dower, where did you get the money to buy so much grain? Li Ping asked subconsciously. Mother, don't ask about that. I have my own ways. Chen Dao smiled and brushed it off, then stepped aside, revealing Ding Shalwa behind him. Mother, let me introduce you. This is Ding Shalwa, she's a refugee from Qingzhou. I saw that she was pitiful, so I brought her back. Hearing Chen Dao introduce her, Ding Shalwa hurriedly stepped forward and said somewhat uneasily, Greetings, aunt. From Chen Dao's conversation with Li Ping, Ding Shalwa already knew Li Ping's identity, she was Chen Dao's mother. In Sha, filial piety was paramount, and the mother's role in the family was quite important. Therefore, when facing Li Ping, Ding Shalwa was very afraid that Li Ping would be dissatisfied with her and drive her away. If she couldn't stay in Chen Dao's house, then Ding Shalwa would have nowhere to go and could only try her luck in the county town. A refugee from Qingzhou, Li Ping frowned, sizing up Ding Shalwa in front of her. She saw that this woman was wearing ragged linen clothes, covered in mud and grime from head to toe, even her face was covered in dust and dirt, and she was carrying a comatose child on her back, which couldn't help but arouse sympathy. Chapter 57 Never experienced before. Li Ping didn't mind Ding Shalwa's dirtiness at all. She stepped forward, took Ding Shalwa's hand, and said with concern, Girl, are you from Liangzhou? I escaped from Liangzhou with my man. Ding Shalwa nodded and began to tell her story of escaping from the famine. After hearing it, not only was Li Ping moved, but even He Quilian couldn't help but feel a little sad. Only carrying a small amount of grain, crossing hundreds of miles from Liangzhou to Taiping County, even a fool would know how difficult this journey was. Even Ding Shalwa's husband starved to death on the road. It's hard to imagine how Ding Shalwa, after losing the person who supported her, managed to walk the rest of the journey with a child and a pair of iron feet. This girl is really not easy. He Quilian sighed softly. She didn't know how the world had become like this, but she couldn't help but sympathize with Ding Shalwa. Li Ping was the same. She held Ding Shalwa's hand even tighter, as if to give Ding Shalwa some strength. Girl, go take a bath first, and we'll take care of the child. Thank you, auntie. Ding Shalwa's eyes were filled with tears, and her heart was full of gratitude. Li Ping, the mother of her benefactor, not only didn't dislike her at all, but also thoughtfully noticed the dirtiness on her body. This kind of care was something Ding Shalwa had never experienced since escaping from the famine. Go quickly, I'll take care of the child. Li Ping gestured for Ding Shalwa to take a bath, and said to He Quilian, Sister He, get Shalwa some clothes. Okay. Bathing in poor families was naturally not as complicated as in wealthy families. After Ding Shalwa washed away the dirt on her body with the heated water, she put on He Quilian's clothes and returned to the front yard. Only then did Chen Dao see Ding Shalwa's appearance clearly. Ding Shalwa's features were barely considered decent. Even if her skin was a bit dark, it was normal, because no matter who it was, it would be difficult to maintain fair skin after walking hundreds of miles in the wind and sun. What surprised Chen Dao the most was Ding Shalwa's age. He had always thought that Ding Shalwa, who had a 5 or 6-year-old child, should be in her 30s, but now that he looked at her, her slightly green face probably wasn't even 20 years old. Ding. Chen Dao thought for a while and decided to call Ding Shalwa, Big sister Ding, how old are you? Answering to my benefactor, I am 20 years old this year. Quote. Chen Dao opened his mouth. He had a deeper understanding of early marriage in this world. At the age of 20, she already had a 5 or 6-year-old child. Wouldn't that mean Ding Shalwa was married at the age of 14 or 15 and successfully gave birth to a child? This marriage age and childbearing age. Chen Dao's mouth twitched. People in this world get married too early, don't they? Marrying and having children before the age of 15 was simply unimaginable in his previous life. Let's eat first. At this time, Li Ping, who saw that Chen Cheng and others had finished moving the grain, greeted them and signaled everyone to eat. Hearing the call to eat, Ding Shalwa, the Chen Cheng brothers, Chen Si, Chen Zhong and others all brightened up. Time to eat. Everyone rushed into the kitchen, only to find that, although the Chen family's dining table was big, it couldn't accommodate so many people at all. So, Chen Dao thought for a while and said, let's eat in the front yard while holding our bowls. The kitchen will be left to the women and children. After speaking, Chen Dao grabbed 2 steamed buns, picked up a bowl of egg drop soup, and took the lead to walk out of the kitchen, squatting on the ground in the front yard to eat the steamed buns with the egg drop soup. Chen Cheng and the others followed suit, each holding a steamed bun and a bowl of egg drop soup in their hands. Working for Brother Dao is so comfortable. Chen Cheng took a sip of the egg drop soup and said with emotion, not only are there fragrant steamed buns, but there's also egg drop soup to drink. I've never eaten so well before. Me too. The Chen Shi and Chen Mu brothers nodded frantically. The time they spent working at Chen Dao's house was the best time the 3 brothers had ever had. They had steamed buns every day, and even had egg drop soup to drink today. In their opinion, even the county magistrate didn't live this well. You're so happy just from drinking egg drop soup. If you eat meat in the future, wouldn't you be overjoyed and turn into fools? Chen Dao said with a smile. This egg drop soup only had a little salt for seasoning, and the taste was extremely bland. To him, it was only slightly better than plain water. As for whether there was an egg flavor in it, Chen Dao, who often ate eggs, really couldn't taste it, but judging from the performance of Chen Cheng and the others, there should be some egg flavor. Brother Dao, don't make fun of us. Chen Cheng swallowed a mouthful of steamed bun and said with a naive smile, how could we eat meat? If we could really eat meat, I would be willing to be a fool. Chen Mu, me too. Chen Si, me too. Chen Dao glanced at the 3 brothers and felt that they were too easily satisfied. They were so happy just from eating steamed buns with egg drop soup, and they didn't even dare to hope for a bite of meat. Just wait, I'll let you eat meat sooner or later. Chen Dao said in his heart. Inside the kitchen, Li Ping handed a steamed bun to Ding Shalwa and said with a smile, Shalwa, eat more, you look so thin. Knowing Ding Shalwa's experience, Li Ping couldn't help but think of the days when she lost her man. During that time, she was just as difficult as Ding Shalwa, so she felt particularly sympathetic to Ding Shalwa. Thank you, Auntie. Ding Shalwa inadvertently looked at the food on the table. The food that Chen Dao didn't think was worth mentioning was actually several times better than what she usually ate. Even before escaping from the famine, Ding Shalwa mostly ate wild vegetables and rice bran. How could she eat steamed buns and egg drop soup? Ding Shalwa tore off a small piece of steamed bun and put it in her mouth. She immediately felt a fragrance. After chewing, a sweet taste spread in her mouth. That taste made Ding Shalwa, who hadn't eaten for 5 days, subconsciously squint her eyes, with a look of intoxication. Seeing Ding Shalwa's performance, Li Ping and He Quilian looked at each other and smiled in unison. As the cooks, who made the steamed buns, they were equally filled with a sense of accomplishment when they saw others showing a satisfied expression. As for Chen Fei and Chen Titan, the 2 younger children, they didn't pay much attention to it. They were eating egg drop soup and steamed buns with relish. While eating the steamed bun herself, Ding Shalwa didn't forget her child. She picked up a steamed bun and said to Li Ping, Auntie, I'll go feed the child first. Ding Shalwa's child had been temporarily placed in Chen Titan's room and was still unconscious. Chapter 58, Boxing. Go. Li Ping nodded, understanding Ding Shalwa's worries about her child and didn't stop her. After dinner, Chen Cheng and the others left one after another. Chen Dao returned to his room and lay down. He wanted to take out the Tiger Subduing Fist manual for a look, but it was too difficult to read in the dark, so he had to give up the idea and fell asleep in bed. The next day, when Chen Dao woke up, Chen Dao had already left home for the construction site. In the kitchen, Li Ping and He Quilian were busy preparing breakfast for everyone. In addition, Ding Shalwa was also helping in the kitchen. Having received help from others, Ding Shalwa was embarrassed to eat for free at home and tried to help with some chores she could manage. Dao Zhe is awake. He Quilian, who saw Chen Dao at the kitchen door, greeted him with a smile. Benefactor. Daoer. Li Ping and Ding Shalwa also greeted Chen Dao. Mother, Auntie, Sister Ding. Chen Dao responded to everyone and didn't disturb their work. He went directly to the front yard. Cluck cluck cluck. Cheep cheep cheep. The dense crowing of chickens played like music in the front yard. After this period of breeding, the number of yellow feather chickens in the cage had reached 40, including 12 adult yellow feather chickens, 25 young yellow feather chickens, and 3 blood feather chickens. Before going to the city, Chen Dao had cultivated a total of 8 blood feather chickens. He selectively sold 5 of them, and as for the remaining 3, Chen Dao planned to keep them for his own use. In Chen Dao's view, the warriors in this world mainly cultivated the power of qi and blood, and the role of the blood feather chicken was to strengthen the power of qi and blood. The reason why Chen Dao kept these 3 blood feather chickens was to test whether he could become a warrior by directly eating the blood feather chicken without any cultivation method. Even if it didn't work, it could at least strengthen his body, right? That was Chen Dao's original idea, but now the plan had changed a bit. Now that he had the Tiger Subduing Fist manual given by Li Hu, the matter of becoming a warrior should also be put on the agenda. Although Chen Dao had Xiao He and Xiao Yuan to protect him, Xiao He and Xiao Yuan were, after all, animals, and there would inevitably be times when they missed something. Therefore, Chen Dao still hoped that he could become a warrior and have some self-protection ability. Besides, even if he didn't consider his own safety, becoming a warrior had many benefits. According to Chen Dao's understanding, warriors generally had longer lifespans. A 9th grade warrior could live to at least 100 years old, and an 8th grade warrior could live to around 120 years old. For the sake of his own lifespan, becoming a warrior was imperative. Chen Dao returned to the house, fed the chickens, took out the Tiger Subduing Fist manual, and began to read it in the morning sunlight. The fist manual was not thick. After about a quarter of an hour, Chen Dao had finished reading it all. So, this is how the cultivation methods of this world are. Chen Dao looked at the 4 large characters, Tiger Subduing Fist Manual, on the cover and fell into deep thought. According to the description in the Tiger Subduing Fist Manual, the martial arts of this world are divided into 9 grades, and the Tiger Subduing Fist is a cultivation method that can only be cultivated to the 7th grade warrior. The way to cultivate the Tiger Subduing Fist is also very simple. You only need to follow the moves in the fist manual, 1 move at a time, to increase your qi and blood. It's just, the fist manual also says that with the physical strength of ordinary people, practicing the Tiger Subduing Fist once a day is already the limit. If you force yourself to practice more, you will inevitably damage the origin of your body and cause physical depletion. Even some people with extraordinary talent and natural strength can only practice 3 times a day at most. If they force themselves to practice more, they will also damage the origin of their body and cause depletion. At this time, some medicinal materials that strengthen qi and blood come in handy. A strong body can accommodate more qi and blood, and more qi and blood will also nourish the body. After using medicinal materials that strengthen qi and blood, one's own qi and blood will be nourished, nourishing the body, and the body can carry out greater intensity of practice, which will continuously increase qi and blood, forming a positive cycle. So, this is the martial arts of this world. Cultivation methods and resources are indispensable, and even the importance of resources is greater than that of cultivation methods. Chen Dao finally understood why Li Hu said that cultivation methods were worthless, because even if you throw the Tiger Subduing Fist to an ordinary person to practice, it is impossible for him to become a warrior. Practicing the Tiger Subduing Fist once will increase the power of qi and blood very weakly, and ordinary people can only practice it once a day. If they practice it for a year and a half, I am afraid that the increased power of qi and blood will be quite far away from a 9th grade warrior. Only those wealthy children and dignitaries who do not lack resources have enough resources to supply themselves to become warriors. However, this martial arts that is almost impossible for ordinary people to practice, Chen Dao does not need to worry about it at all. Although he does not have medicinal materials to strengthen qi and blood, he has blood feather chickens. Li Hu's performance when he ate chicken blood had already proved that even just the chicken blood of the blood feather chicken had a better effect than the medicinal materials used by ordinary warriors. And from a certain point of view, the blood feather chickens that Chen Dao possesses are endless, which is equivalent to having endless martial arts resources. Is he still afraid of not becoming a warrior? Let's try this tiger subduing fist first. After Li Ping and others carried the lunchboxes out to feed Chen Cheng and others, Chen Dao got up from the threshold and tried to practice the tiger subduing fist. The way to practice the tiger subduing fist is much more profound than those Wang Ba fists of the previous life. Each move consumes a lot of physical strength. Before long, Chen Dao was panting, and a lot of sweat dripped from his forehead. After practicing the tiger subduing fist once, Chen Dao was as if he had been fished out of the water. Not only were his clothes soaked, but his face was also pale, as if he could faint at any time. No wonder Li Hu reminded me that with my body, practicing the tiger subduing fist once a day is the limit. Chen Dao muttered to himself, panting. Because of long-term malnutrition, his body was severely depleted and very weak. After practicing the tiger subduing fist once, he felt as if his whole body had been emptied, and he didn't even want to move a finger. I can't feel whether the power of qi and blood has increased or not. Chen Dao tried to sense the situation in his body, but found that he couldn't sense it at all. Is it because the increase is too small, so I don't feel anything? Chen Dao pondered for a moment, came to the chicken coop, and grabbed a blood feather chicken. Then he took the blood feather chicken to the kitchen, picked up the kitchen knife, and cut the blood feather chicken's throat. Cluck cluck cluck. The blood feather chicken let out the last wail of its life, and the blood fell, gathering into the bowl that Chen Dao had prepared in advance. After collecting the chicken blood, Chen Dao temporarily placed the body of the blood feather chicken in the kitchen and came to the front yard with the bowl. Chapter 59, Chicken Blood. Li Hu is an 8th rank martial artist. If drinking all the chicken blood at once causes such a big reaction, and my body is much weaker than Li Hu's, then I should drink a little less. Chen Dao thought for a moment, then took a small sip of the chicken blood. To Chen Dao's surprise, the taste of this chicken blood was actually not bad. The fishy smell is very faint, and the taste is even a bit sweet. Chen Dao smacked his lips, savoring the taste of the chicken blood. The next moment, he felt a warm current rising in his stomach. This warm current spread from his stomach to his limbs, and Chen Dao felt warm all over, incredibly comfortable. It's like my depleted physical strength is rapidly recovering. Chen Dao carefully sensed it. As the warm current spread through his body, his physical strength was also rapidly recovering. Before long, Chen Dao felt that he could perform the tiger subduing fist again. The effect of this chicken blood is amazing. Chen Dao's eyes lit up, and he quickly adopted a stance and continued to perform the tiger subduing fist. After finishing one round of the tiger subduing fist, Chen Dao was panting again, his clothes soaked with sweat, dripping onto the ground. More chicken blood. Chen Dao picked up the bowl placed aside and took a large gulp of chicken blood. The familiar warm current rose from his stomach again, this time much stronger than before, making Chen Dao's exposed skin as red as a cooked crab. Keep practicing. Drinking chicken blood, practicing fist techniques, drinking chicken blood, practicing fist techniques, Chen Dao entered a state of endless cycling. It wasn't until he had finished all the chicken blood in the bowl and performed a total of 10 rounds of the tiger subduing fist that Chen Dao stopped, exhaling a white breath. The effect is very good. Chen Dao carefully felt the condition of his body. He couldn't know the exact increase in his qi and blood, only vaguely sensing it, but the condition of his body was very obvious. After performing the tiger subduing fist 10 times, Chen Dao felt that his strength had increased a lot. In the past, he would have struggled to lift a bucket of water, but now, Chen Dao felt that he could lift 2 buckets of water in one go. At this rate, I'm afraid it won't be long before I can become a 9th rank martial artist. The symbol of a 9th rank martial artist is having 200 pounds of strength in each arm. Chen Dao is still a little far from that goal. According to his own speculation, his arm strength is currently at most about 40 pounds, not even as good as the average arm strength of an adult male in his previous life 20–30 kilograms. However, Chen Dao was not discouraged. 10 rounds of the tiger subduing fist had already given his weak body the arm strength close to that of an adult male in his previous life. As long as he diligently practiced the tiger subduing fist, coupled with blood feather chicken blood and blood feather chicken meat, becoming a martial artist would be a matter of time. I wonder what the effect of blood feather chicken meat is like. Chen Dao returned to the kitchen, looked at the already dead blood feather chicken carcass, pondered for a moment, then directly started a fire to cook. Daoer, what are you doing? Just then, Li Ping and the other 2 returned with lunch boxes. Seeing Chen Dao starting a fire in the kitchen, they couldn't help but ask in confusion. I'm cooking a chicken to eat. Chen Dao replied casually. Okay. Li Ping and He Quilian didn't say anything. They were already used to Chen Dao's extravagance, or rather, Chen Dao's willfulness. In their opinion, Chen Dao was a capable person who could find the secret method of raising chickens and bring back so much grain. He had the right to waste. However, Ding Shalwa, who was following Li Ping and He Quilian, was stunned. It was broad daylight, and there was no work to do, and the physical exertion was not great, but he was going to cook a chicken to eat. This was too extravagant, right? Moreover, looking at Li Ping and He Quilian's reactions, they didn't have any objections to Chen Dao's behavior at all. If Ding Shalwa wasn't a Chinese person from Earth, she would probably ask that classic question, what kind of family is this? This benefactor's family is too rich. Ding Shalwa couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Killing a chicken to eat was so casual. Even a landlord wouldn't dare to be so extravagant. Chen Dao naturally didn't notice Ding Shalwa's reaction. At this time, he was boiling water. Chen Dao didn't plan to stir-fry this blood-feather chicken, but directly stew it in boiling water. Mom, please help me empty the chicken's internal organs. Coming. After Li Ping helped empty the chicken's internal organs, Chen Dao put the chicken into boiling water to scald it, and then began to pluck the feathers. After plucking the feathers cleanly, Chen Dao re-boiled a pot of boiling water, put the whole chicken into the pot, sprinkled in some salt, and then covered the pot to simmer. Brother, what are you cooking? Chen Fei was indeed a little foodie. Smelling the fragrance, she ran into the kitchen and tried hard to see what was being cooked in the pot while tiptoeing. This time, what I'm cooking isn't delicious. Chen Dao touched Chen Fei's head and didn't intend to give her some chicken, not because Chen Dao was reluctant, but because Chen Fei was still young, and blood-feather chicken meat was a great supplement to qi and blood, and Chen Dao didn't know if Chen Fei could withstand it. Really? Chen Fei suspiciously wrinkled her little nose, but she still trusted her brother more. After hearing Chen Dao say that it wasn't delicious, she quickly ran out of the kitchen and returned to the front yard to play with Chen Titan and Xiao Yuan. After about half an hour, Chen Dao opened the pot lid, and suddenly a rich meaty aroma swept through the entire kitchen, and even spread outside the kitchen. The chicken stewed by Daoer smells so good. Li Ping, who was chatting with Ding Shalwa and He Quilian in the living room, said with a smile. Ding Shalwa and He Quilian nodded in unison. Ding Shalwa even swallowed her saliva. For her, who had gone 5 days without eating and felt the hunger and burning in her stomach, the attraction of the meaty aroma was endless. Fortunately, since moving into Chen Dao's house yesterday, Ding Shalwa had eaten 2 full meals, so she didn't lose her composure. This chicken meat is really special. In the kitchen, Chen Dao, who opened the pot lid, observed the chicken meat in the pot. He saw that the blood-feather chicken's meat was completely different from ordinary chicken meat. After being cooked, it turned red, and even the soup turned red. No wonder it has such a good nourishing effect on qi and blood. Chen Dao took the chicken out of the pot and placed it on a plate. Chen Dao didn't plan to waste the chicken soup either, and planned to take it to his family and Chen Cheng and others who were working to taste. Mom, try this chicken soup. Chen Dao, who walked out of the kitchen, served a bowl of soup to Li Ping, He Quilian, and Ding Shalwa respectively. The 3 of them were not pretentious, took the soup and drank it in one gulp. The taste is very good. Li Ping nodded, giving a positive answer. Although the chicken soup was boiled with clear water and at most a little salt, the meaty aroma was very strong. Very delicious. Ding Shalwa's evaluation was even simpler and more direct. For her, everything with a meaty taste was the most delicious food in the world. Indeed delicious. He Quilian also gave a good review. Chen Dao then asked, after drinking the chicken soup, do you have any special feelings? Special feelings? Li Ping frowned and thought for a while, then replied, it seems that after drinking the soup, my body is a little warmer, not so cold. Chapter 60. It smells so good. Me too. Ding Shalwa and He Quilian gave similar answers. This chicken soup was indeed quite peculiar. The soup was light red, and after drinking it, the coldness in their bodies seemed to be dispelled. Their whole bodies felt warm, as if they were in the warm winter. Is that so? Chen Dao looked thoughtful. It seemed that the chicken soup only had a slight nourishing effect, far less than the chicken blood. He just didn't know how the chicken meat would be. Mom, there's still some chicken soup in the house. Take it to uncle and the others to try. Let me go. Ding Shalwa actively got up, went into the kitchen, picked up the wooden bucket filled with soup, and went out the door straight to the construction site. Chen Dao tore off a fragrant chicken leg and started eating directly. Although this stewed chicken only had a little salt for seasoning, it was still very soft and tender after stewing for half an hour, and it had a rich meaty aroma, making Chen Dao's mouth water. Soon, the meat on a chicken leg was eaten clean by Chen Dao, and at this time, a warm current also rose in Chen Dao's stomach, but this warm current seems to be different from chicken blood. Chen Dao carefully felt the changes in his body. When he drank chicken blood, the reaction in his body was extremely strong. He could feel the blood in his whole body seemed to be boiling, making people eager to vent the excess energy in their body. However, the feeling of chicken meat entering the stomach was completely different from chicken blood. Although it would also produce a warm current in the body and nourish the blood, the effect was not as intense as chicken blood but slowly nourished the body like a silent spring rain. Chen Dao continued to eat stewed chicken. Because he had just boxed, his consumption was huge, and his appetite was also wide open. In a short while, he finished the whole chicken. As the whole chicken was eaten, the warm current in Chen Dao's body became stronger, but the effect was relatively mild, only giving Chen Dao a warm feeling all over his body, unlike chicken blood, which made people feel the urge to vent all the energy in their body immediately. It seems that the nourishing effect of chicken meat is relatively mild, and it is a gradual nourishing process. Chen Dao pondered for a while and went to the bathroom to take a shower. While Chen Dao was taking a shower, Ding Shalwa had already arrived at the construction site and said to Chen Dao, holding the wooden bucket, "Uncle Chen, this is the chicken soup cooked by the benefactor. He asked me to bring it to you to try." Hearing this, Chen Dao immediately shouted, asking Chen Cheng and others to stop their work and gather around Ding Shalwa. "Uncle, what's the matter?" Chen Cheng asked, scratching his head. "Good thing." Chen Dao smiled and said, "Brother Dao cooked some chicken soup and specially asked Shalwa to bring it over for you to try." Chicken soup. The eyes of the Chen Cheng brothers, Chen Si, and Chen Zhong lit up. At the same time, Ding Shalwa also opened the lid of the wooden bucket. As the lid opened, a rich aroma wafted out, and Chen Cheng and others immediately salivated. The villagers watching the excitement not far away desperately twitched their noses and swallowed hard. "What's this smell? It smells so good. I remember this smell. It's the smell of meat. I can't be wrong. Meat. Brother Dao's family even gives them meat to eat. Isn't that too extravagant? How rich is Brother Dao's family? They are willing to give meat to those who help with work. I don't even remember when I last ate meat. Mom, I want to eat meat too." "Eat your ass. Get out of here." Quote. The villagers' guesses were of course wrong. What Chen Dao gave Chen Cheng and the others was not meat, but chicken soup. But even chicken soup was enough to make Chen Cheng and others drool. Looking at the soup in the wooden bucket, floating with a little oil and a very strong meaty aroma, Chen Cheng couldn't help swallowing and said, "Brother Dao is too good to us. Not only are the steamed buns enough to eat, but we also get meat soup." Chen Shi and Chen Mu nodded frantically. Chen Dao was really good to them. They, who usually couldn't even eat enough rice bran, had never gone hungry since helping Chen Dao with work, not to mention that they occasionally had chicken egg soup, and now there was chicken soup. This kind of life exceeded 90% of the villagers in the entire village. "Drink it while it's hot." Ding Shalwa smiled, took out a bowl, and served a bowl of chicken soup for each person. Chen Cheng took a bowl of chicken soup first, smelling the rich meaty aroma in the bowl, and was even reluctant to drink it all in one gulp, but gently took a small sip. As the chicken soup entered his mouth, the meaty aroma that he hadn't felt for many years spread in his mouth, stimulating Chen Cheng's taste buds. "Fragrant, too fragrant." Chen Cheng couldn't help but exclaim. The others also praised while drinking the soup. Even Chen Si and Chen Zhong had satisfied expressions on their faces. For them, who only ate staple food all year round, even a bowl of chicken soup with a meaty aroma was enough to make them feel satisfied. Everyone drank the soup little by little, with happy expressions on their faces. "Shalwa, have a bowl too." Chen Da noticed the longing look on Ding Shalwa's face and hurriedly said to Ding Shalwa, "I'd better not drink it." Ding Shalwa said a little embarrassedly, "There's not much chicken soup, so you have to eat it to do heavy work." Ding Shalwa, who came from the countryside, naturally knew that men who did heavy work needed to eat more. Although there was no chicken in the chicken soup, it still had a meaty aroma, which could help the men recover some strength. Chen Da ignored Ding Shalwa's refusal, directly served a bowl of chicken soup, and stuffed it into Ding Shalwa's hand. "Uncle." Ding Shalwa was moved by the chicken soup she received. Whether it was Chen Dao who saved her or the Chen Da family, they were too good to her, allowing her, who had traveled hundreds of miles to Qingzhou, to feel the warmth she had never felt along the way. Drink it. Thank you, uncle. Ding Shalwa did not continue to refuse, but picked up the chicken soup and drank it slowly. This chicken soup is really a good thing. At this time, Chen Cheng, who had finished drinking the chicken soup in the bowl, smacked his lips and said, "After drinking it, I feel warm all over, as if I have gained a lot of strength." Me too. Chen Qi and Chen Mu, like Chen Cheng's echo bugs, nodded frantically. If I could eat steamed buns and drink chicken soup every day, I think it would be worth dying. Chen Cheng said again. Cheng Zhe, you want to live the life of a landlord. Chen Zhong said in a joking tone, steamed buns and chicken soup every day, even the landlords can't live this kind of life. Ha ha. Everyone laughed. Soon, everyone who had finished drinking the chicken soup continued to work with enthusiasm. Ding Shalwa returned to Chen Dao's house with the wooden bucket and sat in the living room chatting with Chen Dao and others. Mom. But at this moment, a weak voice came. Ding Shalwa was stunned, and then a look of surprise flashed across her face. It's Xiaoji's voice. Ding Shalwa got up excitedly and went straight to the next room. Chen Dao and others looked at each other and got up to follow. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories. And never miss out on a great listen.